Praise the Content Gods, episode number 3. Love it. Always close to my heart. I'm here with Simon 466 Cards. First, Simon, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. How are you?
Absolutely, I'm doing very well. So this is my fellow Canadian. Here's our CanCon content. So we're covered. We've met the requirement. We will talk a little bit about the hockeys because in Canada, if we do not discuss the hockeys, we will both be deported, and people who are watching will be deported. That's how bad it is. They're not even kidding around with that kind of thing. And I don't care if you're in the United States; they'll still deport you. We have to talk about the hockeys for all our sakes. We will do it. We'll make sure. But yes, I wanted to chat with Simon, and I thought this would be a good follow up to the previous. So, episode 2, I talked with Neo Cards and Comics. Simon is obviously very familiar with. But part of the reason I wanted to have this conversation right after that is because this provides a good contrast. Because it's not, Neo, obviously, like myself, is a follower of the content gods. So, we do it here. Praise the content gods as always. But the thing is that very different style of channels because we're comparing and contrasting, but the points and a lot of the thoughts and concepts of it do still follow. So episode 1 was Victor, who was doing one kind of channel with one specific kind of content. Neo was on the other side of it. Obviously, he has his sponsors. He added a new sponsor recently, so there are different considerations of what he's doing. I think he's at or near 20,000 subscribers, which in our niche is very good. So what he's looking at is going to be very different than what Victor's looking at, and what they're looking at is going to be different than what Simon's doing on his end of it. And that's kind of what I want to talk about here because I do think it's still interesting. It's still illustrative to learn something from these people at all these levels and all the different styles and how they're approaching it. So, Simon, what we're going to do now is I want to focus on your channel for a couple minutes, and then we'll talk about collections and some other fun stuff as well. But one of the things I want to focus on, your channel, like I said, in contrast to what Neo's doing, is a much smaller channel, but it's also stylistically very different. And before we actually hit record, I wanted to I already gave you a little bit fair warning, but I said, I have my opinion. I'm going to give my take on how I would classify it. How would you classify your channel? What would you call it?
I would call it stuff that Simon finds interesting. Is the
Okay.
is the very simplistic way to think about it. And so it can run a wide spectrum of topics that I find interesting. But yeah, it's things that I find interesting that requires just an extra layer of thought and analysis. And so if someone who watches the channel finds that information interesting or finds it entertaining or whatever, great. But mostly I do the channel for me. and and yeah, that'd be the way I would explain my channel.
Okay, I think that's fair. Now let me ask a follow-up question. So I'll also elaborate on what I'm asking here. My question is, how would you classify it? Now here, let me help you out. I'll give you a couple of examples. So if
Okay.
I look at Neo Cards and Comics, or I look at Dustin, they're most focused on almost daily videos, kind of news centric. So a lot of it will be timely. It's very news based. That's an example of a channel. There are other channels that are more so the Mangini collection. That's more of a collector channel where he may have things he wants to talk about, but then he'll also say, "Let me show you some cards of this," or "Let me show you this." There's TJ Mack, who I featured on a podcast episode this week. He's more of a storyteller. He's a very narrative driven channel. So he'll show you things in his collection or images or whatever, but he's also narrating it as he goes. So he's invoking it. So that's a different style. That's another category in its way. So we got collector categories. We got the news driven channels. We've got almost like the promotional, more hype driven channels. Like a sports card investor is to sell a product. That's the bottom line. Everything is centered around selling a product. That's a commercial product. And then my channel is a little eclectic. It's a little bit more of a hodgepodge. It's really all kinds of stuff. The live stream is the flagship, but it's more, I would call it more focused on the entertainment side of it. Literally,
Yes.
the flagship is entertainment based. The
Yes.
podcast is entertainment with a little bit of information and opinion. So I'm covering opinion, a little bit of news here and there, but mostly entertainment. So that's kind of my category. So you see what I'm saying? There's different
Yep. I
categories.
got it.
What's Simon's category?
Analysis and insights.
Sure. And I think
Yeah.
that's a good way of phrasing it. So what I would actually call it, so I'll tell you what I was thinking when I was looking at your channel. I consider you almost like an essay channel. And what I mean by that is
Hmm.
a lot of these videos have a thesis or, a
Yes.
starting subject, and then the analysis feeds into it. So you get what I'm saying? I call it
Yes.
almost like it's an essay style videos. These high priced Panini cards will lose their value when fanatics take over. We start off with a thesis.
Yep.
But then we have to explain why. We show
Yes.
them, we explain why, add a little analysis in there. So you're almost going into kind of the analysis essay thesis kind of side.
Yes. And so that is a good way to put it. And so I'll give you context as to why my channel is the way it
Sure.
is. In my current job, I do something very different than what I used to do in my previous job. And in my previous job, I used to do a lot of insights and analysis, and I would be presenting to various people at the corporation, where I would put up a PowerPoint and I'd explain it and walk them through, and I have to tell a story, beginning, middle, and end. And I changed jobs. I lost the ability to do that because it's not part of my new job, but I enjoy that. And so I also enjoy cards. So I thought, I got to keep that muscle memory alive. I got to keep working that muscle. And so that's how the channel came to be. It is because I enjoy telling a little bit of a story via analysis and insights and data, and to what you call an essay. That's how it can be. It's also to like something that I enjoy, but also something that is very functional for me if I were to go back to what I did in my previous job.
I think it's fair. I think it's reasonable. And I think that creates kind of an interesting contrast. That's why I say your channel kind of contrasts some of the other ones that we were talking about because they're taking different approaches to it. And, right off the top, I'll say there is no wrong answer. There is everything. I think there's room for all these different types because some people may be more interested in one versus the other. Now, it is always a tricky thing. And I think you found this a little bit. There is a balance. I think there is an interest for that. And I think that some folks, and I'll include links in the description for folks to check out the channel on their own. And you can see some of the previous stuff. I'm just scanning through right now and you can see some different things. Obviously, there was stuff talking about, the most disappointing part of the National, talking with the Mike Baseball Collector thing. And I had my follow up to that. I just had Mike on. That was my answer to that, to that solution, to get on there, to get his take on it. But then there's videos similar to "Not all hobby content is made in good faith." So that's a title you can find on here. That's on there. And then there's a couple of story mixed into it. But to your point, the majority of this really kind of focuses more on you wanting to present, a take or an analysis or something. And then that's what the video focuses on. Now, let me ask you this. You talked about it before we hit record. The challenge with that is that obviously there is a niche market. We're already niche to begin with. So whatever you're doing in there, the news stuff, what's funny, the irony, I guess, maybe this will be the way I'll take this. The irony here is that everybody tells us how they're bored of the news channels or the news stuff and everything, but those ones consistently draw views. If there is a
Yes.
topical thing, it's consistent. So like your actions are not jiving with what you're saying. But if somebody goes the more analytical route, the attention isn't there as much. Or even the collector route, on a lot of cases, not all, but in some cases, even hearing about people's individual collections, that isn't necessarily going to draw the views that these news, time sensitive topics are, even if you're not watching that video 6 months from now.
Yeah, I agree. Everybody says it's the same boilerplate news channels or what have you, but then everybody watches it, and so it's like, well, you can't ask for one thing but then keep doing the other thing.
Well, there's a reason the Kardashians kept getting renewed. It wasn't because it was high quality television. It wasn't because I can't argue that they deserve some kind of credit for reinventing the genre, but it's like people were watching, and then they would say like, "Oh, did you see what happened?" No, I didn't, but obviously you did. That's why you're telling me about. You can't have this both ways. That's all I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, and I think you are probably the first person in the hobby to compare it to the Kardashians. So congratulations on that achievement.
This is what, Simon, I innovate in this space. This is what I do. But that's basically was always kind of fun for me. And the thing, and this important thing, like on the podcast episode we recorded this week, it was funny. Eric actually realized that it was the right moment, but important that I designate this. Eric was regurgitating something that I had said, which honestly was brilliant. I've got my BIC rules of the hobby, my commandments, so to speak, that I follow. But we actually amended one of the rules. And the thing is, the amendment, the new rule that has been amended, basically encapsulates kind of the ethos of my channel. And that is that I don't take this hobby too seriously. There are no sacred cows, as far as I'm concerned. And if I see fit, I will mock everything. So that's why the Kardashians thing works. It's like, no, you don't like it. I don't care. It fits. This analogy fits because you're telling me that it's bad television, which I would agree with you. I'd concur with your statement. I do. I promise I concur. But at the same time, you're watching it. The metrics are telling me you're still watching it. That's why it's getting renewed for another season, so to speak.
Yes. I think it is a very interesting comparison, one that I have not thought of before, and I don't think I would have ever. So again, congratulations on that great analogy.
Now you can't all unsee it. Now it's like, I bet you all
now you can't unsee it. Yeah, or maybe just every bad reality TV show is going to be compared to the hobby.
The Kardashian one is perfect. It
Yeah,
fits the situation.
yeah,
But yeah, whatever bad reality TV show you think no one should be watching that people are watching, like it fits the analogy perfectly.
yeah.
It funnels right in. But that's what I say. Like I appreciate all kinds. That's why I say, like, I am subscribed to your channel. I do watch. Now, to be clear, I don't watch every single video, but I think that's okay because
Yep.
some topics I think will hit more with certain people than others. But I do watch a good chunk of them, and sometimes you'll hear feedback back from me directly, kind of
Yep.
thoughts I have on certain specific videos. Because again, I like all kinds, but I'm also we have so many channels now, nobody
Hmm.
can watch all of them. So I guess
Hmm.
so. Let me ask you this question. So what is obviously you have a new baby, so obviously time is at a premium, so that's a different conversation. But in general terms, so you've got your analytical slant you're taking on your own channel. What kind of channels or videos is Simon watching when he does have the time?
So it's an interesting question. I watch almost all of Neo stuff,
Sure.
and honestly, I watch a lot of the Jeff Wilson show.
Mhm.
And I can vehemently disagree with it,
Okay.
but it is that long form analysis. And some of the stuff is interesting. I will also watch generally any long form interview with someone in the hobby who I find interesting.
Sure.
So, for example, Dustin Sports Card Dad, he did one with Brian Gray, and
Yeah.
which is who is a divisive figure in the hobby. I find Brian to be wildly entertaining,
I'd
and
agree with
so
this. Sure.
yeah, and so I enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to the next one. He does another 30-minute, 20-minute, whatever it was, because Brian has opinions. Brian is not afraid to share those opinions, and
He
so
does.
that kind of stuff I watch. Um, those are the ones that come to mind right off the top of my head. I
Mhm.
do also uh, enjoy the sports card investor cards on the table thing, just
Okay.
because again it's debating a topic. I get less excited about the newsy thing, or if I do
Mhm.
watch a newsy thing, I'll watch one and then I don't need to hear the second, third, fourth, fifth opinion on it,
Yeah. Sure.
because
Yeah.
I will have my opinion and I'll be done with it. And I don't,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, I don't find myself watching a lot of the content that focuses on collections as much.
Mhm.
I used to watch a lot of the chasing cardboard stuff, and then because
Sure.
it's well produced, it's well shot.
Mhm.
But if you've watched one, you've watched like all of them. I feel like for the most part.
Okay.
Oh no, if you watch 10, you've watched all of them.
Sure.
And so, so those are the main ones that I can think of off the top of my head. Oh, and I jump in on your live stream every couple of weeks or so.
Sure. I think we got to get that there.
Yeah, we got like and subscribe. We got to get that in there because as you mentioned, I have a 5-month-old baby, and I'm up till about midnight, and that is perfect background. And I'll chime in, and I'll be like, "Oh, I got to change a diaper." I'll go run away to another room, and I'll come back, and then things have happened, and you know.
Mhm.
But those right off the top of my head are the ones that I'm watching. So it's more. I like content that has a little bit more depth to it.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, I think it's fair. So I'm glad you brought that up because that kind of leads me into a thought. So thank you for that. So as I mentioned to Simon before we're going to hit record, I don't have a specific agenda. I just wanted to start with something. We start off classifying his channel, but now what I want to do is now as we talk, we're going to go and branch off of this a little bit. We're going to have a little bit of fun. But one of the things that he mentioned was he also touched on part of the reason he watches certain things. And I appreciate that you're watching the live stream. And what I always tell everybody is that that's why when I categorize myself, I couldn't stick myself into one single category because it's not that I will not talk about newsworthy topics because I will. I
Yep.
will if a topic or a specific news item intrigues me enough, and this is an important caveat, I don't feel compelled to cover everything, but I will opine on very specific things where I think there is something that I can bring to the table or throw in there or add, or that I want to give a little bit of depth to. But that won't be all the time. I used to do it a little bit more. These days, I'm really picky and choosy on when I want to do that because I've also got the live stream. And what's in the live stream plays that kind of what Simon's talking about is like the perfect use case for it. It is kind of background listening. You don't have to actively engage in all of it. You certainly can. If you want to participate in the chat and make fun of Eric, we're all here for it. But the thing is that entertainment is the main focus of that one. Yes, we will talk about some news topics sometimes where I feel it's relevant. I will jot down a couple of notes or something and I'll get the guys to opine on it. Bobby can fill in when there's something that needs to be done in some depth, and maybe there's a vintage hockey item or something somebody had a question on, or there's Bobby ready to give some information. Uh, Other times we'll have some panelists on and they can contribute certain expertises. This past week we had Mike Ham on, and Mike Ham has opinion on everything. So
Mike definitely has opinions on everything. He was at the famous or infamous tiki place, and he had opinions there as well. So
of
he
course,
is the same.
but he's
He is
also
the same
entertaining.
on camera as off camera.
But that also makes him very entertaining, and it kind of gives me the
Yes.
night off because I get to kind of chill and relax for the most part. I get to just kind of play host a little bit, but so that's the purpose of that. The podcast operates a different purpose. I may have a couple of topics that I want to touch on, and Eric can make some scandalous takes. We were joking about that before I hit record, but and I'll come back to that in a second. But the point is that all of these fit different purposes depending on the audience. So I'm trying to provide something for different audiences. Not everybody
Yep.
does that, but this is the thought process is different formats for even this conversation is a different type of audience than some of that other stuff because we're having a one-on-one conversation. It's just straight up myself and Simon, but we're also focusing more on the content thing, but I'm interspersing all this other stuff into it. There's still a little bit of sass. I'm going to have a little bit of fun here and there. I'll throw some things in, but I want to go into a little bit more depth on some of these topics. But one of the things that you touched on was these different things that you do view and watch. And I feel like there's different purposes to watching some of these things. You prefer the long form content. Okay, that makes sense. Now, here's a question. Is it predominantly because you want to get these takes and opinions, sometimes to draw inspiration? Are you getting information from it? So, what's the ratio? What percentage is the entertainment? You talk about Brian Gray being entertaining, and I agree. But sometimes he'll say some stuff. You did a video on his, Caitlin Clark take. So he gave you
Okay.
basically, praise the content guys. He gave you
Yes.
like a take that you could then take and turn into a video. So there could be inspiration, there could be information, and there can also be entertainment. So what's kind of the ratio when you're listening to these things? What percentage is the entertainment versus these other things?
I would say 40% entertainment, 40% information. Oh no, and yeah, and then 20% inspiration.
Sure.
I would say,
Yes.
yeah, I would say, yeah, that'd be how I do it. 40, 40, 20, with 20 being the inspiration.
Okay, no, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's what I say. Like for me, a lot of the stuff I watch, some of it is just there. I'll watch and listen to it, but sometimes I do kind of listen because I'm always looking for inspiration. There's
Yeah.
always an opportunity where someone will say something that will spark a thought. Even these conversations, as we talk, you'll say something or something will come up in the course of a conversation, and it gives me another branch to explore. What's the same thing when I'm making a video? Maybe somebody said something in a conversation that leads me. You know what? I bet I can make a video on that and have a little bit of fun with it and go back to it.
Yeah, one of the recent examples I can think off of the top of my head is in Neo's video talking about the grading companies. I think it was about a month ago. He just suddenly mentioned like Beckett's doing stuff, something's coming up, and I'm like, oh, I wonder what that could be. So then I look into the Beckett owner, and that's one of the things I've highlighted a few times on the channel. And then I did a whole deep dive as to what Greg Lindbergh, the Beckett conglomerate owner, has been up to, and what his prison situation is, and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, oh, that worked out well. And so yeah, if there's something that I find interesting from a video, like a nugget, then I'll just blow that out to a whole new video. And I know that I try to make my content something that people will not see anywhere else. And so, because I guess my brain just works differently, or maybe I'm a weirdo, I don't know. But I know if I have a thought, I'm like, I don't think this is going to be anywhere else. So I'll just like make a whole thing out of that, even though it is based off of someone else's content.
Mm-hmm. I think that's fair. It can become derivative. I've kind of posed that question in the past. I think it comes down to what it is you're trying to get out of it, what message you're trying to convey. And one of the themes that I touched on this week was it was revisiting an old conversation. That's why on the podcast episode, I also went back in time, ye old time YouTube time machine 3 years ago, where I did the breakdown of a conversation with Chris Hoge, talking with Dakota Sports Card Anonymous back then about what made good content. And it was kind of fun going down that rabbit hole. I revisited that conversation from the past. But one of the points that I was making was not just the subject matter, even though it's come back around because he had a recent conversation on the Stacking Slab podcast where he was talking about content again. And it was kind of fun seeing the contrast, very different notes that he was trying to make in 2025 versus 2022. That's
Oh,
the
interesting.
advantage of being around long enough. You can you can do a little comparing because I was here for both of those things. But one of the reasons why I also thought it was funny was that I went back and rewatched that 2022, and what I thought is number one, damn, that guy's entertaining. He's young and handsome, like fabulous. Like, that Carlos guy back in 2022, what a great guy. I love that guy. But that's the first thing. Second thing is, I really enjoyed the energy I was able to bring into it because it was still fresher. Because it was 3 years of videos ago and a lot of stuff. But it also can become, if you make enough videos, one of the challenges I think is finding a fresh spin because it can feel old hat. The person making the video is the same as the person viewing it. If you overhear or oversee or say the same thing enough times, it loses some of its impact on it. I could tell when I made that video in 2022 when I was doing a reaction, that reaction was an hour and a half on about a 30 minutes worth of video. I turned it into a much larger thing, but that's because I literally broke down every single piece. But number one, I had the energy to do it. Number two, I had the time to do it. But number three, I was genuinely enjoying myself as I was. You can tell listening and watching how much I am enjoying doing this. And I think that shows to the person on the other side of the screen when you can tell that somebody's really into and having fun with what they're doing. I actually think it improves whatever it is you're doing.
Oh, I agree. I agree. And I try to, for my stuff, if it doesn't interest me, if I'm not engaged in it, if I'm not actually like, I believe this, I won't make it. And so I have a lot of hot takes that I kind of like semi-believe that I won't make because I'm like, if I do this, I'm just gonna, my heart won't really be in it. And so I have on my phone, I have a notes app that's like, just, you could scroll for days on it with all these like half-baked ideas that are like, that's not a full video. I don't think I can quite get there. And then like, oh, maybe if I can wait it out and flesh it out, it'll come to completion. But yeah, it's I totally get that. Like the passion in a video, you can actually see if someone's mailing it in. And there are certain channels out there where it's like, okay, this one, are you really trying, or are you here because you're obligated to make a video today?
I think that's a thing. Like sometimes you can tell that, again, some channels may not have to worry about this. If you're only making a video once every 6 months or once every 3 months or whatever, but likelihood is you haven't gone through. It's interesting. You have like a list of different topics, potential topics, and everything. I used to have one of those, but I exhausted that forever ago because I'm making like 200 videos a year, like realistically. So, and also the live stream can almost count as multiple videos because we can touch on different topics over the course of the longer discussion that could be independent videos in and of themselves, really. But I think that's what happens. I think after a while, then I think you do have to, the longer you're at it and the more videos you've done, I think you really do have to seek out what will draw your interest, because as we were having this discussion here, I do think it comes across. And I think people can tell when you are, to your point, mailing it in. And I just don't think that's engaging. I think that's, it makes me want to click off immediately when it's very obvious, like, you don't care about this. This isn't something you're interested in.
Yeah, I agree. And so hopefully it shines through that I do care about the stuff I talk about. And if I didn't, I wouldn't make the video.
I think it's fair. Now, quick suggestion. Since you brought that up, I just thought I was thinking about this, and I think this would be interesting. So here, this is also me giving Simon ideas. So let's throw some stuff in here. Have a little fun. I think you should you might have to. I think you should take some of the worst or most half-baked of those ideas, like rank the worst ones, and do one video that's Simon half-baked ideas.
Oh, I kind of like that. That's pretty good.
But just combine it. Just do it in one video, or maybe if you got enough, you could do a couple. But the point is, these are specifically, literally, I'm telling you, these are half-baked ideas. They don't warrant a full video, but here they are. Here's some half-baked ideas.
Yeah. That's not bad, because it's one of those things where I'm like, I can't flesh that out to a full video. I don't even know if I believe this. I half believe it. And then I'm like, okay, well then, like, I can't obviously make a video. But if it's like, I'm telling you in advance, these ideas, there are flaws to them, but there's something there.
Yeah,
that's not bad. That's not bad. I'm inspired by Dr. Carlos. I might. That's how I'll kick off the video if I do it.
Simon, all I said, listen, people don't understand the reason why I can do a series of interviews / conversations that are literally the Praise the Content God's theme. I love content I love content as much as I love cards. This is a separate hobby inside the hobby for me.
All right. You know what? I'm gonna do it. I think I'm gonna do it.
Simon half-baked ideas. Let's make this happen. Simon half-baked ideas.
There we go.
See, and I'll watch and hit the like button on that, and Eric will pay for it. We're all set.
Oh,
To
there
it's
we
gonna be
go.
awesome. But I said, like for me, there, it's almost like cooking. I don't see any reason to waste ingredients. Sometimes maybe it doesn't warrant. Maybe it shouldn't be the main focus of the dish, but maybe you throw it in a stew and you make something out of it.
There we go. There we go.
And you got a food analogy, people. Enjoy. You're welcome.
There we go. A Kardashian and a food analogy, all in one video. It's impressive.
We're starting off hot here, Simon. Right now, I'm on fire. I'm on fire right now. All these 1,100 videos in, I still have my fastball.
Yeah, exactly. You are still enjoying yourself as you mentioned earlier.
It has to be. I think that's the only way that's going to work, though. Like I would, the pay sucks. I'm sorry for you, YouTube. The channel's monetized, but I assure you, by the hour, the pay sucks. If you are not enjoying yourself, this is a terrible idea.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's it. Let me ask you this question, kind of playing into it. I did see that you've also had a little bit of fun with some thumbnails. Sometimes, like, I can see the thumbnails go in like these waves. There's different ones where I can see kind of where you're going with it with some of the thumbnails, and you're playing around with it a little bit. Some of them I think do a very good job kind of wording this correctly. I don't know. Have you ever kind of wondered or played around with the idea? Because obviously Neo has mastered the fine art of the clickbaity-ish thumbnail. Like, do you look at that and go like, should I? I don't know.
Yeah, I can't quite get there. Like, I think the most obvious one is the Caitlin Clark one that I did recently, which is just.
I think that's where you you got close right up to that line.
Yeah, and it's a lot easier to ask ChatGPT to do one than it is for me to make one, and that was a lot easier. I'm not gonna lie, and so I'm playing with it. I haven't fully figured it out yet, if I'm being honest, but I'm definitely experimenting. ChatGPT it won't be the last time I use ChatGPT. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, I'm not here to judge. I simply pose the question. I go, it is interesting because I left. We were talking about. So let's talk about this for a second, because you mentioned before we hit record the infamous. So I'm going to angle it this way, and I want to chat with you on it. The infamous podcast episode where Eric gave the hot take of hot takes. Speaking of, scorching, Geoff Wilson, and I must say that with Geoff, we've got to give him his emphasis, being hobby goat. Now, the best part is that Dustin then covered it, but only played a clip. And in that clip, basically, you're just getting that. You're missing on all the rest of the episode where Brandon and I are basically tearing him to shreds and mocking him mercilessly. But the funny thing is, the people, you could tell the difference in the comments section where people saw only the clip and were burning him in effigy. Now, in fairness, agreeably so, like, honestly, burning Eric in effigy is like the national sport. So it's fine. But the people who watched the podcast episode and got the full context of it, the lead in, his justification after we started making fun of him, us continuing to make fun of him despite the justification. But if you get the whole thing in totality, you almost be like, okay, I might not agree with you, but at least I see the angle you're taking on this. I can kind of follow. Whereas the clip is get the pitchforks and torches ready.
Yes, exactly. And yeah, I kind of agree with Eric's take at a very high level. Like, I can see where he's going.
Well, Simon's scorching. Simon says Geoff is a hobby goat. Part two.
Yeah, make that the thumbnail right there. But yeah, I think that is the difference between the 20-second snippet and the actual. I think he went on for like 2 minutes, 3 minutes. I don't know.
A little while there. Like, I kind of let it. If you watch my face, I'm kind of so Simon. If anybody watches that episode, watch my face as he's developing it, because I'm sitting there and gears are churning, and I'm thinking, how can I create entertainment value out of this? What horrible things can I do? And I'm also kind of sitting there perplexed. Like, he's really going here. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. He's going. Yeah. Okay.
And you could tell it's something that had been on his mind for a little bit, because he had a full beginning, middle, and end, like a little story, a little narrative as to why he thought so. So it was well done. It was well done. One of the few times.
Yeah. Yes. But kind of playing into what you were saying a couple minutes ago, though, and kind of playing into thing. I had a choice. And even in that podcast, I acknowledged fully that's why I say, like, the podcast episode actually explains it entirely. If you watch the whole thing from beginning to end, you'll see me specifically saying, well, I'm going to make Jeff Wilson is a hobby goat the title. Yes. Because this is important. I could have had that podcast episode be exactly the same had I not put that in the title, had I not put Eric on the thumbnail saying it. on top of having it in the title, if I combined all these things, I could have had the exact same podcast, and yeah, some people might have picked up on it, had some fun with it, whatever. But then it might not have inspired Dustin to do the response video, which in turn drew additional attention to it. Where some people obviously got very angry in his comment section, and some people came by and we had some fun with it. But the point is, the presentation of the thumbnail and the title on that choice is the difference between, yeah, it's just another podcast episode. Some people had a couple laughs with it, versus it got the response video and a couple of things laying out. And some other people responded to it and were also very angry, Simon. The people were very upset.
People can get worked up on the internet over just about anything. And if you can get worked up over sports cards, then you're probably able to get worked up over anything. And yeah, but to your point about the thumbnail, I think I might need to lean into it a little bit more on the clickbaity side of things, but I'm trying to not lean too far into that. But
sure.
we'll see where I land.
Sure. Now let me ask you a question though. This is a kind of a philosophical question that I had with a couple of folks around that time as well, though. Was it in that specific situation, that specific example I'm giving you, is that clickbait because Eric said those exact words in that exact sequence? Because the thumbnail, the title and the thumbnail are saying something that Eric actually said during the podcast verbatim. Now, there's more to it, but the thumbnail and the headline is very short. Like, we don't have enough room to fit all the rest of it in there. But when you watch it, you get the rest of it. But he did actually say those words. That wasn't technically clickbait.
That's fair. You drew attention to the 8 words or whatever it is that were the most scandalous, taken out of context.
Oh,
were.
Yes. Simon, I'm all about the scandals. It was a beautiful moment.
I thought you were a man of peace.
I can be a man of both. I'm a man. Listen, Simon, the peace is, I have the peace and tranquility of I was very peaceful in my way of setting the table up for my entertainment value. Yeah. I am also, Simon, if we also are fair about this, I am also a man of Schadenfreude. Both these things are true. This is established canon. This is established canon on this channel. I am a man of peace, but I am also a man of Schadenfreude.
Wow.
You can Google that and you'll understand how that fits. It's a beautiful, chef's kiss. It's a beautiful thing. But that's why I say, like, it is interesting that you can change the narrative on it. That's why I say, like, sometimes I'll do things on this YouTube channel that are almost an experiment. I almost want to play something out just to see, because again, I made a choice. And even in that video itself, I specifically said, and I did a follow-up video once the response came in and everything, where I kind of had to peel back the curtain a little bit and kind of explain it to some people that were not getting it. It was not hitting through. And I said, number one, if you watch the whole thing, there is more to it rather than just the headline. The headline was not clickbait because he did in fact say those words. Now, we have to then go beyond it to get like, okay, so what's your justification? What was the argument you were actually trying to make beyond the headline? And it's there. But then what happened is, in a lot of cases, you could tell the difference between who watched the rest of the context and who didn't in terms of the response they gave, because some of them were like, okay, I get what you're saying, but I disagree with this, or whatever. And then it became a dialogue, which is great. That's very good stuff. But the thing is, as you create one of those videos, you have a choice every single time.
Yes.
You can lead with a specific thing and it will draw that additional attention, but then you have to be okay with there is an upside and a downside versus playing with a bigger audience versus playing with a smaller audience. And this is where maybe your example can kind of contrast a little bit. You have the luxury of, since your subscriber base is where it is, where most of the videos are getting the views they're getting, you have more room to explore the space on a take if you want to. You can have some fun with it and be like, okay, because what's the worst consequence that happens? Yeah, a couple of people in the comments might get mad about it, but like, whereas if Neo goes completely out of left field and something really weird, the comment section will be full. Like, he will be getting nailed with comment after comment after. He has a little bit more at stake with a larger audience base.
Yes. Yeah. I definitely have more leeway to try and fail, as they say. And that's kind of what I was doing with some of the thumbnails, where like that Caitlin Clark one where she's holding a baby. And so that was me trying new things and seeing how things go. And so, yeah, there's definitely been a couple of times I'm like, let me see how this goes. Most of the stuff I do at this point, I've been doing it for almost 3 years now. I kind of have a rhythm. Although, if you ever saw the amount of false starts it is for me to start a video, it is truly something to behold. But in terms of the actual like building that narrative from beginning, middle, and end, like that's fine. But it's some of the the stuff around the edges, like the thumbnail, the title, because I wanted to actually explain the thesis as you were explaining, as you were saying it
Mhm.
earlier, in the title. And then I've come to realization that like that's too many words and too many characters.
Mhm.
And so what is the best way to manage those words in a way that still captures like 75% of the point of the video while
Mhm.
also getting people to click on it. And
Mhm.
it is this careful balance because there is the, oh, I can make it much more captivating and clickbaity, but it doesn't actually reflect what I'm saying in the video. It'll be like 30% accurate. Or I can make
Sure.
something that's like 80% accurate, but then like way less people or way fewer people will click on it. And so it's like careful
Mhm.
balance of what I want to do. And and then I'm trying new things with the thumbnail. So yeah, it's interesting to like try new things. And you'll
Yeah.
see me throughout the day if a video isn't performing well or is underperforming than what I would expect it to be. I will change the title of the video after like 8 hours or something. If I check in, I'm like, oh, okay, well let's try version 2. I didn't have a
Mhm.
version 2, but I'm about to make one. Let's see how that goes, and then I'll switch it up.
Sure. Well, that's what I say. Look, I think you're actually in a position right now where you do have the luxury to be able to play around with this a little bit. Kind of a follow up to that. Let me ask this. Uh, I think everybody. One of the questions that I always pose, and I asked this question earlier about collecting, but I could ask the same thing about content and video making. It's like, what are you trying to what are you trying to accomplish? What are you doing it for? You already established that at the part of the thought process of building the channel was you wanted to keep the muscle of that type of analysis active. You want it to be able to use it, flex it in using into creating videos in this style in the specific way. But I guess here would be my question. So obviously you're able to do that with the videos you're doing, which allows them to flex that muscle and utilize it for that. Again, we're also taking into account, new young family, brand new family, so that there is going to be a time constraint element to it, obviously. But I guess my question would be, is there any desire or interest in doing anything beyond that? Because right now you've got the videos you're doing, you've got that set up, and then you're able to flex that muscle and do that analysis. Would you incorporate any collection based stuff? Because you do have a collection. We're going to talk about that in a couple of minutes here. But would you incorporate any of that or any other stylistic things into it? Or are you comfortable with the cadence and what you're trying to do with it now?
So one of the videos, so the answer is yes if it was easier.
Okay.
Like I mentioned before, we have a 5-year-old, and there is no actual place for me to put my camera, or I'm sorry, my phone in a way that is like, to be blunt, like looks decent. It's a
Sure.
mess. And so like one of the videos I want to make is, here are my pickups from the National,
Sure.
and it's 5 cards. No, 3 cards in a pack, which I will
Sure.
open. But I don't have the setup for it, and so that's why we're over a month later and I haven't done the video yet. And so
Mm.
it's one of those things where it actually is a pain for me to show off my collection without like showing my feet in the pic in the in the video. And like I don't have a beautiful desk set up. I live in a condo. It's like
Mm.
1,000 square feet, and so I don't have the room to create a safe little space or like a den or whatever, because my den is now my baby's changing room. And
Mm.
so to that point, the answer is I would if it was easy, but it is becoming very apparent it is not easy, and so that's why I don't.
Sure.
But if I move, maybe, or if I find a better way to set up our place, or maybe when our baby is older, it doesn't have all this stuff. But then I think they'll just have other stuff. So the
Sure.
chances are unlikely unless we move. So
Okay, no, that's fair. Now, I would throw one thing at you. It was actually kind of funny you said that. I posed the question because I was kind of curious, but I think what you're encountering is completely valid because that is a real problem having like the full setup. And
yeah,
my office is my office. I've got it set up and configured a certain way. But what a lot of people don't see, and that was funny, is my old videos. You would see this Dallas Star Stanley Cup poster, basically a banner that was in the
yeah,
background of my old videos. Well, the banner is actually right here on a wall that's literally on this side because all I
yeah,
did was shift this desk setup 90 degrees. You're seeing a different wall, but it's the same room. All I did was adjust it. Over here on this side, I actually have a table that I used to have in the middle of the room, but it's actually just on the side of the room. But in the old days, earlier videos, when I did pick up videos, to your point, I actually had a folding table, which I still have. I got a folding table. I would set it up wherever I wanted to set it up. I just needed to have some light somewhere. But basically, I set it up, and the background was actually a Lambeau Field puzzle that I got at
that's fun.
at the Football Hall of Fame. I would actually put that as the background. So I would literally just put that. The camera, I would put it on a little tripod, and the camera would face that way. So I'd be looking at. I create my own corner. The puzzle box was the background. The table was the table. I would just face it that way, and then I would show the cards. And then I would basically use just one little tripod like this, and it would just face down, and there you go. There's no background, no additional. You're not seeing your feet because the table was where this goes, and then the
Yeah.
background was the puzzle piece box.
Yeah, and like that's the thing, because I'm not set up for it and I haven't really thought about it. I don't even own a tripod, which is one of the other problems I have. Like I don't have any of the equipment necessary. That's why most of the videos that I make, I'm not on camera, because it's usually the times that I record, it's like 1 a.m. and I'm sleepy and I'm in my pajamas and my hair hasn't been done and I haven't shaven in like 3 days, and that is not a good look if you ask my wife. And so that's why 99% of the videos that I make, I'm off camera. It is just me talking into this guy and I'm just sharing my screen. That it is purely functional more than anything else. Why I like the way my videos are the way they are. And it's one of the reasons why I don't expect my channel to be one of the bigger channels, because I think I even put it in my YouTube page, is like, come for the analysis, stay for the low production value. It's just it's this is the way it's going to be, because for my purposes of building a channel, this is what I want to do.
Mm-hmm. No, I think it's completely fair. That's why I say, like, I think it's still worthwhile. The reason I wanted to go down this path and ask this question is that I think a lot of times we almost forget, because one of the bits that are coming up now, where there's been a couple of videos on it, is saying, like, these YouTube channels aren't good. The content's not good because of all, and it's like, well, the repetitiveness we can't do anything about, because realistically, a lot of the big topics have already been broached. A lot of them. New stuff is new stuff, but it's temporary. You can basically get something in the moment, but then in 3 months, no one's going to care. Like whatever that news item was, there's a good chance in 3 months, no one's going to care. So it's not an evergreen video. A lot of the the collector stuff, even the pickup stuff, yeah, there'll be some people that'll be interested. Like if you're a personality based channel, I think this is important. I think you're a personality based channel. I think people are watching videos because they like your personality, your presentation. So the pickup video is an extension of that. So okay, so yeah, what's so and so picking up? Yeah, okay, kind of curious. But all of us have different things we're collecting. So I might not be specifically interested in that specific thing that you're collecting, and vice versa, or whatever the case may be. So the amount of interest you're going to have in it may be minimal. If you got somebody who collects the kind of stuff that you collect, then yeah, your interest is going to be peaked. It's going to be much higher to it. So but like a lot of people don't have the time, they don't have the space, they don't have that's why I still do a fair number of videos where it is a talking head video, but it's a screen record. What you're looking at is a recording of my screen, and then you can see whatever it is I'm showing you, and then the microphone's doing the rest of the heavy lifting. So
that's my channel.
Covers it.
That's my channel in a nutshell. It is sharing my screen, me yapping into a mic for 10, 15 minutes, sometimes 4, and then me going to bed after that. That's basically the magic sauce.
There you go. Well, like I said, though, Simon, what you were saying earlier about the 1 a.m. and everything, it's like, listen, 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. Carlos are some of my best work. I've got some old videos where it's like, oh man, that guy's on fire flames. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think if you did like a distribution of the times that I record, 80% of the stuff happens after midnight, from sometime between midnight and 2 a.m., I would say. And that's just when I have time and when my wife's asleep and whatever. And so and then I'll always ask in the morning, I'm like, was I too loud? Because we're like 2 rooms apart, but we have like an air vent that she might hear me through. She's like, okay. She never hears me, so it's great.
Good, nice. All I'm hearing is Simon After Dark.
Ooh, well, maybe I should rename the channel.
What I'm saying is, like, if that's when it's getting recorded, that's when it's getting recorded, Simon. So we're all about the branding out here. We're all about the branding. So actually, in that vein, what's the 466 for? What's the 466 stand for?
So it is my house number where I grew up in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And so I lived on the street and it was 466. And coincidentally, my favorite player is Mario Lemieux. And there you see the shirt. And so what is his number? It is 66. And so I am Simon 466. So it is dual purpose.
Wow, look at that. I still kind of like Simon After Dark. That's still kind of funny.
Wow. People might tune in and be very disappointed by the content then.
That doesn't change the fact that it would still be very funny.
Yeah, that's true.
At least in the short run, there might be a little bump up going like, what's this?
A lot of thumbs down of this is not what I expected.
It's okay. Some of my biggest videos have tons of thumbs down because it was the old movie reviews. And I joked with I explained this in a couple of videos back. It was been a long time, but I was joking with them. It's like, no, you got to understand that part of it is that you have to kind of accept that a lot of people click on things not having any clue what it is they're clicking on.
Yes.
And then they, even if you try to make it pretty obvious what it is, that's why I say like those old movie reviews that I did were long form. Like the infamous one was the Marine,
The
and then
Marine,
also
yeah, yeah.
Universal Soldier. Yeah.
Yeah.
So those two videos are over 3 million views combined because people have no idea what they're clicking on. But to your point though, speaking of that video, so the Marine has 4,197 thumbs down.
You still watch it anyways, though, right? That's all.
You still watch it anyways. Like I was like, I don't know what to tell you. Hey, but it also has 2,168 likes.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
got more thumbs
exactly.
down by a 2-to-1 ratio. You know, I've been ratioed, but I got 1.7 million views.
Yeah.
It is what, but that should tell you, like YouTube treats them the same. They don't really care that much. But it's like,
Yeah.
you know, thumbs up is helpful because it tells me that you actually liked it. But
Yeah.
otherwise, YouTube treats them all the same. Like YouTube doesn't actually, they're like, oh, well, you took the time to actually do it. If I actually don't like something, the best thing I can do is click off and not do anything, not engage in
Yeah.
it in any way beyond that. That
Yeah.
if I actually don't like it, that's the best way to actually punish the video.
Yes. Yes. Or and hit the button that says, "Don't ever show me anything from this channel ever again."
Yes. A lot of people don't seem to. I feel like every couple of months I have to remind people that exist because a lot of people
Yes.
don't realize that. It's like, no, if you genuinely, that's why whenever I hear somebody complain about, Eric's personal goat, Geoff, whenever they complain, I say, well, if you really don't want to see the videos, you do have recourse here. Like there is a way to avoid it even showing up on your recommendeds ever again.
And you know what? I actually use that function for the hobby. There are certain channels who will remain unnamed where I find them extremely off-putting, and I
Sure.
just say, "Don't recommend channel," and I haven't seen them in months and or years, depending on the channel. And it's multiple, just to be clear. It's not just one or two, it's multiple. And I'm much happier for it because every
Mhm.
time I saw the channel with a video that would pop up, the immediate thought I would have in my head is this person is either playing someone who's dumb or is dumb. And I don't know the difference, but I'm done with this. And delete. I never saw those people again in my video feed, and I'm quite happy. And so I would say to all those people who don't like certain people, or or truly, if you truly do not like certain people in the hobby or don't like the content, just hit don't show me this guy ever again. But if you like to hate watch, be honest with yourself and tell yourself that I don't actually hate this person. I enjoy hating their videos, and those are very different things.
That's fair. That's a good. I like the word of wisdom, Simon. I'm liking where you're going with this. I like that. I like that.
Every once in a while.
It happens. Let me ask you this question. Something that we kind of talked about on the side was that one of the conversations we've had separate from this, and now I'm going to get into talking about the expo, the national, that kind of thing, how that plays into it, and then we'll also then go from there. I'll give you guys a little heads up. Then we'll go into talking about a little bit of the collecting side because, as he mentioned, he collects Mary Lemieux and other things as well. But that's a good kind of spot that we can talk about. But one of the things that we have talked about, both kind of online and offline, a little bit as well, is different characters in the space. You talked about already how Brian Gray's entertaining, and he is. He's kind of an entertaining figure, a polarizing figure. He says a lot of things, but I appreciate it because it's entertaining. I've had him on the channel, and I tried to teach people the way of how you interview Brian Gray, and you do that by interrupting him constantly, because otherwise he'll just keep talking. Go to
He's
50
a
different
walking
places.
monologue. He's a walking
Yeah,
monologue.
yeah. He'll go straight for filibuster, and if you don't pause him 50 times, you will never actually get the question that you asked answered in this lifetime or next. So you do want to interrupt him regularly. But he does have a lot of interesting things, whether you agree with them or not, interesting things that he'll throw out there. And then you can agree or disagree with them and then have some fun with that. But there are other characters in the space that also are involved in different aspects of it, that run companies and all that. And one of the ones that we've talked about in the past is the Hooge. And I have my own history kind of with the Hooge in the past. But beyond that, that's why I say that reaction video that I was referencing earlier was specifically him doing an interview where I didn't agree with his take, obviously, and I tore it apart. But he obviously still around. He runs Card Ladder. They're doing all that stuff. But then there was that thing a couple of months, I think it was a couple of months back now, where they were still doing the crossover. Ken Golden interrupts. So speaking of somebody also in that space, and then they almost have like an on-air argument. And of course, entertainment value, tremendous, tremendous. But what I thought, and if you remember, I was talking about this. I think it's hilariously interesting that we've got these hobby characters. Let's call them hobby characters. You got Ken Golden here, who has been around a long time. By the way, Ken Golden has a very notorious history. You don't have to
Yes.
Google too hard. You will find out a lot. And then Chris has put his foot in his mouth more than a few times. And both of these guys technically run companies, or, are at the head of the figureheads of companies, and basically bickering like children. And I kind of
Yes.
think about it as like, what does that say about this industry where this is what, and then we got Brian Gray marauding around in the background somewhere. This is what we have. People running companies in this industry, Simon. Just general thoughts on that.
What was interesting in the video, the reaction video or whatever that I made, I'm like, did you guys all see this? This is kind of insane. It's kind of the take that I had in the video. Is if you go in this comment section, it was like 90% of the people were on Hoja's side.
Sure.
And their basic take was, well, Ken Golden's like notorious and has a shady past and whatever. And I actually, people DM me saying basically the same thing, but it's like, two things can be true. That can be true of him, but he could also be right in this situation. And it was like people's head exploding that like that wasn't possible. That your idea of who Ken is supersedes everything else. And it doesn't matter if in this particular case that he was right. As for the personalities in the space, I was actually giving this a lot of thought because I was trying to come up with who, on the flip side, who are the three people who have a universal, like everybody loves them. I don't know what the right word is. Like universal approval rate. Like just no matter who you ask across the hobby, is the Mount Rushmore of universal hobby approval? And I can only come up with three people. I couldn't even get to four. And so the three I have are Chris Sewell, right?
Okay. Yep. Sure.
SGC Pete.
Right now, again, look,
yes,
we find out about his shady dealings, It's what?
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
So,
I'm kidding.
yeah.
For legal purposes, I'm joking.
Yes.
Go on.
That's two. And then Ryan from Gemray. So that's three. That's it.
Well, I think it's tricky because a lot of people may not know who Ryan from Gemraid is. You have to add the from Gemraid because we may not be as familiar with the individual. Yeah.
But if you ever talk to him, like super nice guy, if you ever talk to him, we've got him and I have this crazy story from the National. But I couldn't get to four as in terms of like universal approval across the hobby. And I think that says a lot about the hobby. To your point, like there are a lot of characters where like, because of either what they do or how they do it, they're going to get pushed back. And the other piece is because cards in and of themselves is a business and has value in a certain way, you can try to be the fairest negotiator of all time. But at some point, you're going to rub someone the wrong way in a negotiation for whatever reason. And so it really makes it hard for that universal approval to supersede all of the transactions if you are big enough and well known enough to have been in the hobby for a long period of time and to be a well-known figure. So it does say a lot about the hobby that there are these characters that are somewhat questionable, but I like to think of the positive side where like the hobby is supposed to be fun and not focus on all the negative sides of things. Having said that, there's just so much shady behavior, both current day, in the past, and of the people that run certain companies. And I'll leave it at that.
Sure. Now, you kind of lead me down an interesting path, other than, again, for legal reasons, I was joking about things. I may or not leave it in. We'll see. Listen, those fanboys they're rabid. But let me ask a question, though, based on the names you gave. I don't necessarily have an issue with what you said, but I think what actually makes it more interesting to me, the names that you came up with, and again, I'm deeply disturbed you didn't just say Geoff. Like, to me, it was Geoff, Michael Rubin, and Eric. Those are the only Universal figures that I know are beloved. That's it, as far as I'm aware. But like, your names are good too. But I'm just saying they're just a little different. But I guess my question would be this, though: the names you gave, I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I think there is an interesting caveat with those names. Because, so let's start off with Chris Sewell. I would agree. I don't think I've heard a negative word about Chris Sewell. I think most people like his stuff. I think, though, it's interesting because he's a content creator in the space, though, who really doesn't step outside his lane, which actually in this case is kind of wise. He's got his niche, he's got his specific stuff, he's got his stories related to his business that he does. He'll talk about these, cards, the regular rollers, the high rollers, all this stuff. He's got these, series that he's created. Um, but at the same time, it's not like his profile is so big that he would warrant or bring a lot of detractors. It almost goes back to what I was saying to you earlier. If your channel was 10 times the size it is right now, like if we snap our fingers and I 10x your channel, Michael Rubin, congratulations. I've 10x'd it. 10 times the views, 10 times the subscribers, 10 times everything across the board.
Yeah.
You're probably going to get more negative comments. Not because you changed necessarily what you said, but just simply there are more eyeballs. There are more people who naturally may not like something for whatever reason that you said. Chris Sewell, though, is an interesting spot where he has built up a platform. And in this niche, a pretty strong platform. Yeah.
Yep.
But at the same time, it's not like he sticks his neck out on anything. So it is kind of safe. He's found a good pocket where he can say what he wants to say, and I don't think anybody really has any major issues. But I think if I increased his profile size and doubled or tripled his channel, we might start finding a couple of detractors. We might find a couple because they're just there. You increase the size of the platform enough, we will find somebody. And then likely there will be a couple, or some people just want to be contrarian and they'll just go for it for the sake of being contrarian. So I almost feel like he's in an interesting pocket. So that's one. Second one that is kind of interesting that you brought up was Gem Raid. Sorry, what was the first name?
Ryan. Yeah.
Ryan, thank you. Because I know Gem Raid, but I don't necessarily know Ryan. He's almost insulated. Like I say Gem Raid, that's your product or account that we can follow. Because I don't necessarily know the guy behind the Gem Raid. In this case you do, but because I don't know the guy behind the gem, that kind of insulates him a little bit as well. So it's kind of an interesting second. And then the other one is SGC Pete, which again, allegations, scandalous allegations. But I think though he has the halo effect because he was the front face of the underdog.
Yeah.
And I think there's an advantage to that because it allows you, and seemingly from the outside and all dealings that anybody's had with him, he seems like a very articulate young man. Again, he's still a young man, all things considered.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, I've watched videos where people have pitched, oh man, I wish Pete had been in charge of PSA instead of, Nat Turner and those guys. And I'm like, do you understand what would happen if I put Pete in that spot? What if things didn't change? Or what if things didn't change enough? Would he still be the darling? That he almost gets to, in a way, if I was him, wherever his next venture is going to be, I would almost avoid grading entirely. Even if he wants to be in the hobby, I would almost like do something, because he almost gets to leave with the halo effect intact. If he goes to something else that isn't related to grading, it could be to his benefit because he doesn't get, we always think of him as the potential of what could have been versus the reality if I allow enough time and money to seep in. Even if it doesn't change him, what if he tries to do something and it just doesn't work? A bureaucracy is very difficult to maneuver versus a company where the only person you're really answering to is the owner.
Yes. Yes. And I agree. Like, I don't think that SGC Pete running PSA would have been the same experience, and it would have led to a lot more detractors because the goals and mission of someone running a company that is by far the number one versus by far the number 2, 3, whatever you wanted to call it, when it was 2018 or 2019, whenever he took over, that is a very different goal and purpose, right? When you're number one, you're trying to find new ways to make money. Whereas if you're number 2, number 3, number 4, you're just finding to do whatever it takes to get market share. And that means treating your customers well and making them come back. And that's why he became so beloved.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I just think it's an interesting, for different reasons, I do think that there is a little bit of I don't disagree with your names you chose. I just think there's some mitigating circumstances that, in some way, if any of those three were bigger than they were, I actually think they would lose that universal approval rating that you're talking about.
Interesting. I actually think Chris Sewell would maintain it. But I agree, if SGC ran, the situation matters too, because I feel like if SGC Pete was running Beckett, to pick a fun name in the hobby, he'd be so screwed. He'd have I don't think anybody can succeed with that company because of all of the, and so if he had been running that company, we would not think of him the same way. And not because he himself has changed and is a different person. It's because the circumstances around him would have made him ineffective at his job.
Yeah, I think
And
it's
so,
fair. So,
and
go ahead.
I also wonder, for anybody who is in a senior leadership position at Beckett, like, nobody should be able to properly gauge their effectiveness because of how hamstrung and all the different challenges that they have that are just unique to that company. So,
I think it's fair. I think
yeah.
it's like I said, I think you brought up an interesting thought exercise though. Hey, look, maybe that'd be a video. What about the alternate reality world where some of these figures then tried to, swap out some of the heads of some of these different companies and how would they
Mm.
perform with different circumstances? It's a hypothetical. It's like it's hard to say for sure, but to your point, most people would fail at Beckett just
Oh yeah.
because of the nature of the type of. I don't care who it is. Like your skill set that you would need would not only need to be unique, you would need to be a very forceful, powerful voice who would manage to squeeze whatever power that you could out of it to the point that you could get certain things done. And even then, I can't guarantee you'll be able to fix it. You might be able
Yeah.
to stop the bleeding a little bit, but maybe that's the best you can do.
It'd be almost one of those things where the only type of person, in terms of personality and of intellect and of persuasion, to be effective in that role, that if you combine all of those things that are necessary, like, that person probably should be a CEO of like a Fortune 500 company instead. And it's like they would never work for take this position. Is kind of where I'm going with that. The cards are so stacked against you.
I do think it makes for an interesting thought exercise, though. I appreciate you bringing that one up. But yeah, I agree. I think it's interesting. I would love for anybody who's listening at this point. I would love to know if you have anyone else you would add to Simon's list.
Oh yeah,
Universal hobby approval rating. I'd be curious
yeah.
to see if anybody has any other names they'd throw in the hat.
Who is the fourth person on the Mount Rushmore? Or do you disagree with my three? I guess maybe that's a video that I make.
I actually, Simon, look, I'm being honest. Like in the course of this conversation, if you're not, I would be jotting down ideas because there's some video ideas coming out of this right now.
All right, you know what? I'll just watch this back and I'll jot it down. But yeah, the
You
Mount
should.
Rushmore.
I think there's some video ideas here. What I was going to say, kind of filling in the thin issue, is that, like I said, I do think it's odd that a lot of these, what precipitated this conversation is that I do think it's odd that a lot of these figures who are in charge of these companies, they can bicker like children and do all that. You can just, I think though what's funny is to respond to your point about the responses in the comments. I think people in the space have just gotten used to it. For better or worse, we're just kind of like, yeah, that's Ken Golden.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that's totally fair. Like, you just say, well, you don't have to like him, but he's still going to run a big auction house for high-end cards. So you can dwell on who he is or just move along. I think that's fair. It's just like, you can say whatever you want about Michael Rubin. He's still going to run Fanatics. Like, it doesn't matter, right? Same thing with Nat Turner. Again, I don't know any of these people, but it doesn't matter how much you dislike or like them. They're still going to do what they do. So let's not dwell on that. Although a lot of people dwell on the Michael Rubin is going to kill the hobby with his monopoly or whatever. So
we'll see. Simon, he's ruining lives. He's ruining lives. He's going to kill us all, I think. Maybe, I don't know. Like, look, because they make really bad jerseys, it's going to ruin our lives or something. Like, don't you understand that?
Yes, obviously, because the jersey, I might see it one day in the wilds, and then my eyes, Carlos, my eyes, and then and if I even put one on, oh well, it's trouble.
It might be toxic. Look, if your eyes are hurt, then the Simon After Dark episode coming that night is scrapped. That's it.
There we go. Those are all these ideas. They've been erased from my mind.
Horrible. So let me touch on this then. I mentioned already kind of the expo and also the national and everything. Obviously, you've been down to expo. We've sat down and had some chats and everything. And I always like that for that kind of thing because it's a good opportunity to sit down, have some conversation, and everything. Sometimes you're out there willing and dealing though. You're a busy man at expo. See, now national, you're tiki bar, Simon. That's a different conversation entirely. But let me ask this question. Let's use the national first, and then we'll come back around to expo. So for the national, when you're out there, what percentage of it is it kind of the experience, looking for cards and all that? And what percentage of it is chatting with other folks, like content creators or other folks in the hobby and all that, the social aspect of it?
So this past year was different because I don't know how, but my wife is an angel and gave me the pass, like the green light to go, even though we had like a 3-month-old, and or yeah, no, 4-month-old, 3-month-old. Father of the year over here, almost 4 months at the time.
I was gonna say
Anyways,
someday you'll remember your child's birthday. That'd be good.
yeah. Today is not one of those days, and so I only had 2 days there, and
Sure.
so I walked the whole show floor in those 1 3/4 days. And so that was my main mission, and go to the trade night and then like show up at the tiki bar that one night. So for this 2025 national, it was definitely like look at cards, buy cards. I only picked up 3. I only bought 2 and I sold 1. But most times I'm in it because I like cards.
Sure.
And then if there's after hours fun by like, hanging out at the tiki bar, I'm absolutely for it. But I also really enjoy going to the trade nights. Like this is, I go to these shows because I actually like the cards. I know that's crazy to
What?
hear. And yeah,
Scandalous.
like when I am walking the show floor, like I am on a mission, and I've looked at the map beforehand. Like if I'm going to the national, I will look at it beforehand, and I'll know the setup roughly of like, and then this way, if I walk this way down this aisle and back up this way, then I will be able to cover every single table. I might spend like a half a second at the table because I'm like, oh, that is Pokemon. I don't care. I will keep on walking, but I'll be able to see every single table. And then if it's like, oh, that table has hockey or basketball, then I will look. Is there anything I'm interested in? If not, keep it going. And I'm like a robot. Like just keep going. If there's something you don't see, stop and analyze the entire showcase if it's possibly something you could want. And so that's why like I would be able to cover the national in less than 2 days, which is what I did this past year. Like I got there right around noon on the Thursday. I was there almost all Friday, and that was it. And I had like 2 or 3 hours to spare. And so I'm mostly there for the cards and the experience and the trade nights and the whole thing. Like that's what I'm there for. And then if I get to meet and hang out with people afterwards at night, then yeah, let's do that as well. But I would say like 80% is for the cards.
Sure, that's fair. Okay. Now, like we said, we did make reference to and have a little bit of fun with the whole tiki bar thing. It just was perfect timing. Just Rick Vintage Oddball Cards joined us on the live stream again. Simon, I'm so proud. Like I even if I could, under all the circumstances, I'd never want to go to the national because I love my not national coverage. It's my favorite thing, and literally branding it as a not national coverage even makes it better. But Rick joined us from the tiki bar, so it's like we were there. It's the experience. So Rick was out there, obviously, Mike Ham was out there, and I know other folks were. I'm pretty sure Dustin was in the area, Filmington, maybe some other folks there. Let me ask you this question. Other than, we take it as a given that Rick Vintage Oddball Cards is a wild man who basically needed to be restrained by security. That's what I assume. Outside of that, is there anybody that you met there that either you hadn't met there before or you had the first opportunity to talk to? Anybody surprise you?
Oh, and I talked to Mangini for a little bit when at the tiki bar. Very chatty man. Very chatty man. I have no exposure to him. I know the name. I know like his face, and that's about it. So it was nice to talk to him. But yeah, very chatty. Has a lot of strong opinions. So I don't think it's a put on when he's on screen at all. But yeah, I think those were the main people that I met, because like I've met Filmington before, like Dustin and Neo, they're all there. Jeremy Lee was there. I got an autographed card from him. I don't have it with me right now, but that was I showed you the picture, as you may recall, or Neo did. And I don't think I ran into anybody else that I could think of, but it was such a blur, because I'd been dealing with the baby beforehand, so I was working on like 4 hours of sleep in like the 4 days before, 4 hours of sleep each night in the 4 days leading up to it, and then also the night I was there. And so like I don't remember much from the national, if I'm being honest. And with the baby, I barely remember what happened 2 days ago. So
that's fair. Listen, it happens.
Yeah.
I just assume it was basically the hangover.
Nobody ended up missing, or a tattoo, or with a tattoo, or had any. Well, no, there were some tiger stripe cards at the show, so there were some tigers involved. So, but it was a lot of fun to be there for the 2 days and then fly back out.
Sure. follow-up question. You mentioned already that one of the favorite things is the trade night. Obviously, there's it's different from the show, but I do think in some cases it can be. I'm not a big trade night guy, but I understand the appeal because you can kind of do the collector to collector. It is a little bit more open in that sense. What is it about the trade nights that you like?
You will get to see cards that you can't find anywhere else, and you will find people interested in your cards that you wouldn't find anywhere else, because it's one of those situations where I have some cards that are one of ones, and so you might not even know that this card exists, but when you see it, you're like, oh, I didn't know I was interested in that, but now that I've seen it, I am. And then that's how things happen. The other thing in terms of trade nights that I really like is you get to meet new people and you get to hang out with new people. So I met these 3 guys from Alabama last year at the National. We had an absolute blast because what happened was I was at a table with Neo and Dustin and Ham and Steve in Cleveland. They went out to get dinner, and then these 3 guys just sat down in the empty spot, and they were an absolute blast. And they, like, I would say they're like my friends now. And so this year I'm like, we got to do trade night. We're gonna hang out because it's just fun hanging with these 3 guys. And so you know what they say. It's not about where you go. It's about the friendships you make along the way. Not to be too sappy, but I had a good time with the guys from the Quiet Card podcast. They're always a good time. So yeah, that's also part of the appeal of trade night is meeting new people and chatting them up. And sometimes you might get stuck with 3 guys from Alabama that you really like hanging out with.
I like it. Very nice. Very nice. Makes sense. Now let me shift over. We'll believe it or not, we will talk about some collecting. Why not? We'll do it just for the sake of. We'll do it for the sake of you people here. Obviously, we already talked about Mario Lemieux. That is one of your collections. Yes. What else, if anything, do you collect? What is the other things in Simon's collection?
Okay, so there is the Mario Lemieux stuff. There is Joel Embiid, NBA basketball player, sure. And the other one. So I picked this up at the National, actually. So as mentioned, I have a daughter. She was born this year. I spent 3 years of rigorous negotiation with my wife, trying to convince her that if we were to ever actually have a daughter, we would name her Buffy. Sadly, I was rejected in that negotiation. I lost that negotiation, and so I went to the National and I bought this. There we go. That is a Sarah Michelle Gellar Buffy the Vampire Slayer card, autoed. And so I came home from the National and I told my wife, honey, I told you I was bringing a Buffy home in 2025. And yet here we have accomplished the task because you wouldn't name our daughter that. And so
somewhere off in the distance, Neo Cards and Comics is like approval.
Yeah. So those are the so I have now 2 autos. I'm looking for the 3rd. And the other cards that I'm starting to get into a little bit is WNBA.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've bought a few of those. Some of them are for my collection. Some of them are for flipping, investing, whatever you want to call it. And it is interesting because that is that is a niche market. And it is much more collector driven. And the easiest way to say it is it's a much more pure community. A lot fewer sleazeballs is what I'll say. If we think about
Simon, here's where I'm going to be that guy for now.
Sure, because like the cards, they're not as valuable, obviously, right? Like I can buy a Black Prism 1 of 1 for like $500.
Yep, sure.
And or a gold vinyl. And so I bought one, and then someone messaged me. He's like, "This is my favorite player. I'll give you like $1,000 for it." And I'm like, "Oh, I just posted the card on my Instagram, and it was not on any marketplace or anything." And this person reached out to me on IG and was like, "Hey, I want that card." I'm like, That's too bad. I want this card. And so
Simon 466 says, "That's too bad. I'm keeping it."
yeah, it's like I'm just like it's like he's like, oh, you want to trade for him? Like, do you have this? Like, blah blah blah. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, what if I offered you like $1,000? Because I'm like, and I know that's gonna be overcome. I'm like, no,
Mm.
because I want to hold it for now, and maybe I'll squeeze an extra $500 out of him or something. But it is
Right.
in that sense, like this person clearly, I went to their IG page and it was like, yeah, just all this player, and this person posts about this player all the time. So it's a much more pure community. It's not just like you don't see people here just like buying it for, you know, X and then like selling it 5 minutes later to someone for another like 5%. So I find it interesting. The other part of this, and maybe I'll make this into a video, is so like think of all the men who are in the hobby. Sports cards. What is it, like 98, 99%, 95%, whatever the number
It's
is,
still
right?
going to be, it's still going to be comfortably 95 plus for sure.
And so at what point in those guys' lives, how many of those people do you think will have children? Like 50, 60, 70%? Right?
Depends on how much
And
time they spend downvoting YouTube videos.
that's fair.
There's a correlation to angry comments in the comment section and no children.
Right. And so at some point there,
Or maybe too many children. Maybe it goes the other way.
Well, I mean, yeah, then you have a different
The
problem.
anger's got to come from somewhere, Simon. The anger's got to come from somewhere. Go ahead. You were saying.
But like I now have a daughter, you know?
Yeah, sure.
And if I like collecting cards, I'll probably still like collecting cards in 10, 15 years. And like I'm more likely to bring them to a WNBA game than an NBA game, you
Sure.
know? And so if you think about all the dudes in the hobby right now, 30, 40, 50% of them are going to have a daughter at some point, whatever that percentage is.
Sure.
They're probably be more interested in the WNBA than the NBA. And so, like, is this going to happen overnight? No. But is this going to happen 20 years from now? I'd say better chance than not, in my opinion. And so this might be one of my takes about the WNBA and its like possible growth in the hobby 5, 10, 15 years down the road.
Right. Well, I think it's at least there is a demographics argument to be made. So basically,
Yes.
the demographics argument is a piece of that. So it's something that can be thought about and discussed. And I know there is like Brett McGrath does the Stacking Slabs and everything. He started doing a WNBA card podcast. Obviously, he's leaning into it the same way. I think he has 2 daughters, so like obviously it plays into that sensibility automatically. But then he's also got his local team is the one who has Caitlin Clark. So you've got a couple of combining elements into it. It would make it more predisposed. So right there, having a WNBA card podcast does kind of lean into it. Makes sense, conceptually. And then his co-host is a big WNBA fan, so I think that can work from that. The fact that you've got a podcast then kind of opens the door to possibly more. I would probably say, for me, it's not a concern of mine. I have no moral opposition to it, but at the same time, I can't say no. Because why not? There's lots of niches here, and I think maybe to your point, a lot of people forget that there's a lot of other niche categories. They're like, "Whoa, so why would anybody collect that?" Well, because they do. They want to. Like, that's fine.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where if you think, oh, like I don't care about the WNBA, and it's like, yeah, that's probably true of you and 99.5% of the population, and that's fine. But it's pretty easy if that is the case to get 0.5% to 1%, and you've just doubled the size of it, right? Because
look at you incorporating the maths.
I told you I was into insights and analysis. Here we go.
There you go.
Right, and so because the base is so small, to double it makes it really easy. Whereas like if Michael Rubin's trying to 10x the thing, you're trying to 10x something much, much larger, right? Whereas if you try to 10x the WNBA, it's probably a lot easier.
I think it's fair. I think it makes sense. So I think that's good that you've got a couple of those categories. Kind of playing into what you're saying as well about the category, because it is smaller and the dollars are lower. It does make it easier to have more of a collector focused side of it. Less flippers. There are flippers for sure, like in anything else, but the stakes are lower, so it is easier. They're going to focus on bigger fish, because you can make more money in these other categories, so that's going to draw more of the attention, more of the oxygen. Kind of a question though, from what the story you gave. This is something I've talked about with a few folks, so I'd be curious your take. Does the person, if somebody approaches you to buy a card that you show, in this case from Instagram, so in the example you were giving, does them being a quote unquote real collector of the character or the player or whatever, does that sway you in any way in terms of if you were going to negotiate with, even if you were inclined, you're like, okay, maybe, does that make you more inclined to give them a little bit of a break? Because I've got my answer, but I'm curious on your thought on that.
I don't think so. Maybe I'm just cold and ruthless, but no.
I prefer to call it Simon the correct answer.
Oh,
When it comes to the reality is, if I am inclined, because I have people reach out for certain things in there. If it's part of my collection, number one, it's part of my collection, so automatically that's going to make it a little tougher to extract. But you being a real collector of so and so doesn't actually matter to me. I don't say this to be mean, but like, no, if you want to take this from me, then and you are offering money or whatever the case may be, then the deal still has to make sense. So if you're a flipper and you're offering me a ridiculous amount of money, then I might think about it. But if you're a real collector, then if I want to hang on to the card, you're still going to have to offer me a ridiculous amount of money. That's not really changing the situation really for you.
although now that I think about it, do you remember our very first interaction?
Was the first one the MJF or was it the second one?
No, that was the second one.
The second one. Probably, but not completely. You have to help me out a little bit.
So I had a Mike Modano card.
Yes.
It
Okay.
was an insert of some kind
Okay.
that I had pulled from a box on my
Oh,
parents'
was
property.
it Fire and Ice? Was it Fire and
I
Ice?
think it was Fire and Ice. I don't remember.
Okay.
But I
Yeah.
pulled those cards with these very hands, Carlos. These very hands.
Those very hands.
And
Okay.
and so and then I think this was like shortly after the pandemic, maybe it was like 2021. And I saw you were a Mike Modano fan, and the card I pulled was a Mike Modano numbered insert from the 90s. And so I said, "Hey, I have this card. Are you interested?" And I sent you the picture, and you're like, "This is actually one of the ones I don't have."
Mhm.
And I knew you were a collector, so I was like, "Oh, this is the person I would want to sell this to," because this card in particular I pulled with my very own hands. And so in that particular case, it did matter that you were a Mike Modano collector,
Sure.
because I was like, I wanted like this card that I pulled when I was literally a teenager to be in the hands of someone who would treasure it as much as I did. So in that case, yes, it did matter that you were a collector. Having said that, I should have squeezed an extra $20 out of you.
Opportunities missed, Simon. Opportunities
Yes,
missed.
yes.
What,
But yeah,
what's funny though, like to your point, I think you're making a valid. That's why I say like I posed the question. But the reality of it is that maybe, and man, also to put it just so that we're all on the same page for anybody listening, as a collector, I also have no expectations, so I never lead with that. In this case, you knew already. That's fine, and like I said, regardless. But if I'm interested in something, I have to figure out what I'm comfortable paying. I'm not
yeah,
sitting there relying on being like, but you don't understand. I'm a real collector. I've been collecting it for so long and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I never use that because for as far as I'm concerned, no, this is your card. What would you like to get for it? Maybe I disagree with you. Maybe I think the number's out of whack with reality so far. There's like, yeah, no chance. There's no way. But then there's other times where I'll be like, no, I'm interested in getting this card. I am willing to quote unquote overpay because I want that card. So fine. I'll do the deal. I have to understand what I'm willing to pay for it. And you as the seller have to understand what are you looking to get out of it? What are you willing to get out of it? But I do think some people do try to use the sob story. They try to use but I'm a real collector. So, and they're basically trying to squeeze for a break. And I'm
yes,
not really kosher with that. That's really not all right with me. I get it, but I'm not buying that.
yeah. And also, people lie.
They do. Yeah.
Yeah, because I was talking to someone else who I approached, I think last night, 2 days ago, and I said like, "Oh, what about this card?" And we were going back and forth, and he's like, "Oh, this other card that I had, I had sold to someone, and they had said, oh, they were going to keep it, and then they just slabbed it and then sold it at auction like shortly thereafter." And he's like, "Yeah," I was like, "Yeah, that's people lie." And so people can say this is for a PC and then turn around and sell it right away. So words are just that, right? Especially with people you don't know who you've met online. Like words can be fleeting, So yeah, if someone tells me they're like, yeah, it doesn't really matter to me.
Sure. No, I think it's fair. I think though to your point as well from your story that you gave. So thank you for the reminder. I had to think about it when you started mentioning that because we did do it in person at the expo to finish that
Yeah,
transaction.
yeah.
But I think though, so in case of myself, I have so much backstory with collecting Medano cards that my bona fides are established. Like it's not hard to see that I've been collecting stuff for a long time. I don't have to tell you. If somebody wants to look into it, they can see evidence of it. But but going the other way as well, like I said, you're right. People can lie about that, and that is unfortunate. That's why I take all that stuff with a grain of salt. I never want to assume anything. That's why I say, as a buyer, if you are not putting something in a platform for sale, and I'm a collector and I want to extract that from you, I can't assume anything. I have to assume that I have to come at you with a strong offer
Yeah.
and hopefully a fair offer, and then maybe you counter me or whatever. But like, I think that's part of the equation. But I'm not coming in with any expectation of discount because I'm a quote unquote real collector. No, we're doing a transaction.
Yeah.
You didn't even say this was for sale, so if I want to get it from you, I must make a strong offer to at least entice you to have this conversation.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it, right? Especially if you come unannounced with
Mhm.
no whatever,
Yeah.
and just slide into someone's DMs. Like, yeah, you should pay what you want to pay, and if that's not good enough, then that's not good enough, and that's kind of the
Mhm.
end of the story. This is purely transactional, as far as I'm
Mhm.
concerned.
Sure. Let me ask you kind of a random question that still plays into this a little bit because I was thinking about it as you were kind of explaining that. But it's one thing that I've had a little bit of fun with. One of the favorite things that a lot of people look at is the idea of different comps. You know, you've got different apps now that you can use to establish the comps and everything. But this is always something. And by the way, I'm not pitching for this, but I just think it's a funny thing. Have you ever thought about from the perspective of the collector? We always look at these comps, like we'll look at eBay's completed sales and whatever maybe Fanatics collect. Oh, there's all these platforms that you can get the stuff on. But whenever we do comps, we never actually factor in the real cost of getting the card into your hands. And what I mean by that is, so let me give you an example, just a tangible example so we can think through this thought. So if I go on eBay and I offer, let's say it's a Canadian seller, let me simplify it, no tariffs, no customs, let me keep it simple. Canada to Canada, I don't have to worry about that. The only thing I have to concern myself with is them getting the card to me, whatever the case may be. If I go and I make you an offer on eBay, so whatever the offer is, you as the seller are going to get the transaction fee that eBay is going to charge. That's fine. That's one consideration on your end. But as the buyer, what do I have to think about? Well, whatever it is that I offer you, I also have to add in whatever your shipping is because that's actually part of the price. That's actually what it costs me to get it. Plus, I must take into account sales tax because I have to pay that. So
Yep.
if I'm at a card show, so I'll give you a number that is based on an eBay thing that I was looking at earlier today. So let's say there's a card on there. In this case, a Medano card for me. 150 bucks is as at the expo. So I go to the expo. There's a sitting on the table. It's 150 bucks Canadian. Okay, cool. I don't want to pay 150 bucks Canadian, but I look at the card and I say to myself, okay, what is it I would like to pay? And I think to myself, and I kind of work out the number in my head, and I say, okay, probably what I would do in that scenario is I'd say, would you take 100? And then the seller would think about it. Maybe they'd say no, or maybe they'd say, all right, that's a little low for me, or whatever. And maybe they say, would you do 140? And then I'd say, would you do 120? And maybe we wind up at 120, maybe we wind up at 125, maybe we don't. But the point is, in my head, I'm good between 120 and 125. That's kind of where I want to wind up. That happens at the expo. And then when I hand over the cash, though, that was the cost of the transaction. Whatever it is I gave them, that was the cost. Move it over to eBay. Same $150 starting point, but now I have to pay $12 shipping. And then I also have to pay sales tax, and the sales tax is on the whole thing. So in reality, it's not 100. So if I offer 100, it's actually 112 plus tax. So now
Yep.
I have to kind of factor that in. So now my offer is going to, so even though you as the seller don't need to care, that's not the point here. My point is, as the buyer, if I still want to wind up about 125, I have to crank out the old calculator and start doing some math and figure out what is the offer that I would like to get you to accept so that with the shipping and with the taxes, I wind up somewhere in the ballpark of where, whereas in the show, we figure out the number and that's the end of the conversation.
So it's funny you mention that because the reason why I grabbed my phone, remember that list of YouTube ideas that I had?
Yep.
I had that exact idea on there. It was not all YouTube cons, but I couldn't find it because I think I deleted it like literally 5 days ago.
Mm.
But the idea was something along the lines of not all YouTube comps are this, or not YouTube comp, not all eBay comps are the same
Sure.
because of things like sales tax, shipping, and whatever else, cost of goods to ship it or whatever.
Yeah,
Even
I
for
just call it, I'm calling it the cost of acquisition. That's what I
yeah,
call it, just to be like,
yeah,
whatever it costs me to get it from whoever the seller is into my hands here as a collector. That is the
yeah,
total cost.
yeah. And so that was one of the ideas I had, but I was like, oh, there's not enough meat on there on the bone to create a full video about it. But yeah, I 100% agree. That was the context for this video idea that I had, because especially for you and me being in Canada, a card from the US to cross the border costs a lot
Mhm.
more. There might be tariffs, shipping's more.
Mhm.
Then I ship my cards to
Mhm. So do
temporarily
I.
store them.
Yep.
to help save money, but that also costs money. And so that was the point of this video that I never made, and perhaps it'll be on the half-baked ideas video. Not all comps are the same because of these red tape costs, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree 100%. Yeah, not all comps are the same, even though
The
the
reason
comp
why I thought
itself might say the same number.
exactly, but that the funny thing though is that the comp might not be the same number. That's the reason why I thought it was interesting is that I can look at a comp and say because the comp is showing me what the final sale price was.
Right.
If it's $100, so in this case, in the scenario I gave you, if I offer $100 and they accept $100, that's what it's going to say. It's going to say $100. It's not going to say 112 plus tax.
Right.
But the real number is 112 plus tax. That's actually what I paid. Whereas at the show, maybe it was 125. But the number can vary. That's why I say like it is interesting. And I preface this by saying I'm not advocating for that because it's too complex. There's no way it can account for the total. But as a collector, that real number is the actual cost of acquisition, not whatever the comp was. That my real number is. So my offers though are adjusted based on that.
Yeah, they should. They should be.
Yeah.
Because of the incremental costs that aren't when you do something in person. It's just like it is what it is. And especially when different people and even the big consigners, they charge different prices for shipping. And Probstein will charge something different than like PC Sports, will charge something different than MC Sports. Like they're all the same, but they might charge different. And then versus like some regular Joe down the street might charge something else. Like it's all different, even though the final price is $100. So exactly. I agree with your point on that one.
Yeah, I just thought it was very funny, and what kind of led me down thinking about that, we discuss it from time to time, but I thought it was very funny is that I actually decided to, as a little kind of a thought experiment, because I'd said it before in a podcast episode, and I explained to some folks, and I said it in the podcast episode that over the course of time, I did some napkin math, and I just said like, I probably spend, for my Medano collection specifically because it's the biggest single PC I've done. I go, I probably spent close to 100K, maybe over 100K over the course of time. That's over 30 years and tons of transactions and all that. But I was sitting there laughing. And one thing people may not know this. In eBay, you can request your transaction history. You can request your data. So a couple of weeks ago, I was kind of like, I was morbidly curious. So what I did is I said, hey, can you send me my transaction? What I did is my account started in 1998. I didn't ask for all of it since the beginning of time. I said, can you just give me the last 10 years? It takes them about a week to provide it.
Oh,
and I was able to get it.
It's not automated. It's not like a spreadsheet that it just spits out for you. It's a guy in the back.
They will give you what they'll do is it's a request, and then they will create a file for you, and you can download the file. And it's not an Excel file, by the way. I had to translate. Nope.
It's not. So it's actually like Steve in the back office, like running some code or something.
Steve's got to do whatever he's got to do. Take some time.
Has someone told Steve that AI is about to take his job?
Maybe someday. But for now, Steve still has a job for the moment. So I was able to get it a couple of days back, and I downloaded it and I transferred it over into a spreadsheet because again, I was morbidly curious. I was kind of, I wonder, because in the back of my mind, again, I've been collecting for 30 years, this player. So I can't possibly remember all the transactions. Like there's no way, it's just not possible. But eBay, at least, because the eBay has a database, then they have access to, I can only access like the last 2 or 3 years if I go back in previous purchases. But with that request, I can access years. So I literally accessed 10 years of data for me. And I said, okay, give me my last 10 years. And what led me down that thought most recently, even though I've thought about it a few times, was that, so what I did is I pulled a spreadsheet out, I copied everything over, and then they give you individual price, they give you quantity. And then what I did is they also give you transaction shipping. So they include the shipping as its own column.
Yeah.
And the total price, by the way, doesn't actually count it properly. I used a formula and I just put it together. But anyway, so what I did is I just took the last 10 years, and just the last 10 years alone, I've paid $4,216 in shipping for Mike Medano cards alone. That's shipping. That's just shipping. $4,200 on shipping. Doesn't count taxes. Doesn't count anything else. That's only the last 10 years. So I was sitting there like, yeah, that's a lot. But that is in fact, doesn't count in comps, Simon. That is not in any of the comps. It does not count.
So it's interesting you mentioned that because my background is basically I was in the hobby when I was a kid in the 90s, dropped out of it, and then came back in 2020 during my life, during the pandemic, right? And what I actually have is a spreadsheet of all of my purchases and sales since I rejoined in December of
So you're
2020.
screwing over Steve, Simon. Steve has a job.
See, well, this is from non-eBay as well. So I'm all over the
Sure.
place.
Okay.
Like it includes
Yeah,
in
yeah.
person, includes everything. And so I can tell you the amount that I paid in taxes and fees in about 2 seconds here. Oh,
Yeah,
no,
sure.
it is $2,475.27 in terms
Yeah.
of taxes and fees. And so that includes
Sure.
shipping and all that kind of stuff. So
Sure.
it'll get you. It'll get
Yeah.
you.
But the funny thing is, it doesn't count comps. So like none of these dollar amounts. In some cases, it's nominal. Like let's be clear. In some cases, for smaller items especially, it can be nominal, but it adds up over time. Like it can keep racking up. But again, that does not count towards the comp price at all. Like it does not count.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting that the way that works out. And of course, not an issue for the folks listening in the U.S. I will give credit to Steve. He included a column for currency. So
Oh,
not only do I
wow.
have the total, you can break it down by currency because USD, obviously, we have to increase the. So I'm giving you just a flat number. It does not take into account exchange rate differences.
Someone give Steve a raise. Shout out to
Listen,
currency here.
by the way, bonus
Steve.
also, I have the seller names for everything, so you can actually figure out which seller you bought the most from.
Oh, I also have included seller name where applicable.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So again, I for me, it was just for my edification. I was just kind of curious. It was a curiosity for me, just a thing. But I thought that number was very interesting because they go, look, again, I threw out that number as just a thing. But again, this is only the last 10 years. I've had an account since 1998. This does not count anything I bought at the expo. And I have spent a decent amount of money buying some high-end Medano cards at the expo. That doesn't count a dime of that. It does not count it. It does not count in Instagram transactions that I've done where somebody said, hey, I see you collect these. Would you be interested in this? Exactly.
Like
Doesn't count it. That is not counted towards this.
So my question for you is, how many cards is your collection at this point?
For Medano, just shy. I updated the number the other day. 2,798.
Okay. How do you remember which ones? Because you want one of each, right? You want one of everything if possible.
Yeah, that's the intention.
How do you remember at this point which ones you do have and which ones, more importantly, you don't? Because you can't remember all 2798 of.
Not anymore. There was a time before 1,000. I used to actually be able to eyeball them actually very well.
Yeah,
and past 1,000 was hopeless.
Now, do you just have like a spreadsheet on your phone or whatever, so that when you go, like, do I have this or not, or how do you remember?
So if I go to the expo, I'm usually pretty good because at this point, if I'm at the expo, I'm looking at really high-end stuff in terms of low numbers. I'm not looking at like regular stuff. There's some stuff I know pretty well that I need, especially playing day stuff, because that checklist has shrunk. Like if I go to play, the first like 10 years of his career, give or take, I need less than 60 cards. So it's not too difficult. Basically, if it's on that list, it's on that list. Believe it or not, speaking of Steve, Larry from Beckett, I use the Beckett Collect, whatever they call it, organize. And I would create these checklists out of it. And basically what I would do is I would just add things as I went along. And then that's basically how I would keep tabs. And then I broke it down in 5-year chunks just to make my life easy because again, going back to what we're talking about here, maybe this overarching theme is that, listen, collectors are dorks, especially ones that have any data background. Like we like knowing these things. Yeah. Because I was curious. So like for the first 5 years of Medano's entire career from 1990 through 94, 95, all the cards that are on there, I need 7.
There's still 7?
Out of the entire, because the stuff that's left is really obscure. Like I can show you after, you'd laugh at the obscurity of some of these. It's not that they're difficult to find per se. They're just very difficult to get somebody that has identified them properly. So they're obscure more than rare. There's a distinction.
Are they also from obscure manufacturers? Like they're not from Upper Deck, Leaf, whatever back in the day? Or is it still from one of the big ones?
One or two. So I'll give you a quick example of one. Upper Deck, in the first couple of years, they had these weird manufacturing snafus and issues where they would have the hologram on the back would actually be used with the wrong set. So they would have like baseball holograms being used for the hockey cards.
Oh yeah, nobody's ever going to know that. Like
the thing is, there are a handful of sellers that can identify because they're not hard to identify. If you actually look at it, you can see it. But the thing is, look at the side of the hologram on the back of the card.
Yeah,
who's looking at it? The card is identical otherwise because no one can. That is what I'm talking about, Simon. There are 2 or 3
Oh,
of
okay.
those on that list that are hologram variations on the back.
That is the minutia of the minutia on that one.
Correct. That's why I say, for the most part, I finished that. And then for the second 5 years, obviously the checklist gets bigger as we move to the
Yeah.
mid to the late 90s. But even out of that, I need about 50. So that list has gotten real small, and we're talking like out of 10s, out of 25s, and some really tough stuff. And I don't count one-of-ones because for me, there's no point in having one-of-ones with the checklist. Either I have it or I don't. If I'm
Right.
seeing it in front of me, I don't have it.
Yeah.
So like, it's not. I don't need that on a checklist. It's redundant for me. Like if it's in front of my face, it is not in my collection. So
Yeah.
I think we're covered there.
Yeah, and that's why I was surprised that the card I sold you, I think it was the Fire on Ice, you didn't have, because I think it's serial numbered out of 2500 or 3500 or something like that. So it wasn't
Yep.
that rare. It's not like serial numbered out of
I
single or
think
double
something.
digits.
So I can tell you story wise. I think something happened with the manufacturer that year. You can go search. They're actually very obscure. Even for the print run, they don't come up all the time. Even now.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember
Why? I have
when
no
I.
idea.
Yeah, I remember when I sold you the card, and then I sat down with you and chatted with you and your buddies for a little bit, and you explained like, yeah, like something happened, and it's been 3-4 years. I remember the explanation, but yeah, I was like, oh, I thought you'd have this one, but okay, sure, sounds great. I think it was.
Yeah, that's why if you want to, I'm not the guy when I do pickups and such on my videos. I'm not a guy who's going to get overly excited about card pickups. They're from my for me, the satisfaction is in seeing that checklist shrink. It takes a lot of work, or that's the reason I still do the save searches and I check them every day, because I'm looking for that thing that is a little bit. If Upper Deck comes out with a brand new set and they have a one-of-one, that's cool. Hey, you know what? If I can get my hands on it and the price is reasonable and all that, yeah, sure. I would get more excited getting something from that list of 50 cards that's getting smaller and smaller all the time. Even if it's like, oh, this one's out of 25, it's not a one-on-one. Like, but you don't understand. It hasn't come up in a decade. Like, I haven't had a chance to even offer for it. It's out there in the ether somewhere, and I just got to find it.
I feel the exact same way. So it's going to be a video coming up. There's been a card that I've wanted for a year, and I've had it as a saved search. But one hasn't come up at a reasonable price until 2 weeks ago, and it was listed for like $170. And I'm like, oh, I can negotiate down to 150. And I'm like, you know what? Like, screw it. Snap, bin, let's go. Let's not mess around. And so I'm told it arrived at my Ship My Cards account today. And so I'm just waiting for the image to show up so I can make a video about it, because I actually have a video recorded saying this card is freaking awesome. It's from August of 2024. It will be now a cut to a year later, be like, it is now September 2025. Here is the card in my account. It is here. Now I'll tell the world about it and how awesome it is. So, and I will, spoiler alert, I will tell you what it is. It is from Topps Project 70 from a few years back.
Okay.
And yeah, and it is a baseball card. It is of Randy Johnson.
Okay.
Are you aware of the incident where he killed a bird with his pitch?
Yes.
So one of the artists made a card of that, but as Duck Hunt.
Okay.
And so it is like black background, very pixelated, but it's clear Randy Johnson, and it's like a bird exploding. And that has parallels that are serial numbered out of 70 and 51.
Okay.
And so the 70 is like a refractor, and the 51 is like an artist proof or something. It has like a silver frame around it, and then there's a 101, which is like whatever. And so I didn't want the base version because it was like 3,300 of them. I could get them any day I want, but I wanted the refractor version. I've been waiting a year, and then one finally popped up, and I just snap binned it. I'm like, let's go. And because the card looks hilarious, and it is purely for my personal amusement. And then the get together parallel is so that it has some rarity to it, and I think the refractor is going to look even more cool. But like, that card is in my PC, and it's going to stay there because I think it's just a funny looking card. Look it up afterwards. Just Topps 70 Randy Johnson Duck Hunt is all you'll need. And the card is like, the artist, like, chef's kiss to I think his name is Jonas Never. Like, chef's kiss to that man. That guy, like, greatest idea out of Topps Project 70.
Nice. Well, the thing is, so I'm familiar with Project 70. You know, Project 2020 obviously got that ball rolling originally
Yeah.
with them. I actually I talked to one of the guys that was a big collector into it back in the day, and he's still around, but now he focuses mostly on T206 stuff because he was collecting T206 back then too. But
Yeah.
he was the Project 2020 guy. And then for
Yeah.
a little while, he was into the subsequent, I think it's CRT Sports Cards, if memory serves me. I'll double check, but I'll put it in the description if you guys want to check it out. Mostly he's focusing on T206s these days. Again, still great collection and great videos as well. But the thing is that we were talking about that and the different artists and the interpretation that they, and Project 70 obviously is an offshoot of that. They
Yeah.
continued the concept. But then each artist could pick subject and then decide on different themes. But to your point, like I liked, if you notice, if you're watching the video here, you saw the smile on Simon's face when he's describing this thing. It's like conceptually, just take it as concept. It's an artist doing a rendition of Randy Johnson. He's playing off the bird thing. He's playing off the duck hunt thing. There's a nostalgia element to it, but he's also looking
Yeah.
for the rarer version of it. But again, I advocate for this on this channel all the time. Cards should be fun. The only reason to do it, like I've got my Mike Modano collection. I've got different collections that I work on, all that. But then there are still moments where I can have, and I showed this off previously on a podcast episode. This is Get That Bread.
That's great.
It's a burger. It's a burger
Oh,
card for Alan Ginter. So I'll zoom in here. It'll be a little easier to see. Here you go.
nice. Nice.
And the thing is, these things are a couple of bucks. The
Yeah.
point is that it's okay to have silly cards just because it amuses you. That is perfectly valid. That is a perfect. Sarah Michelle
This,
Gellar looked that, but there's a good bat. But the point is, Simon, if somebody asks you the Sarah Michelle Gellar thing, you can also give the Buffy backstory. There's a little
exactly.
bit more to it, which adds to it. I mean, the burger thing was a running joke. I was talking about different silly cards and all that, and then I discovered that they had sandwich cards basically. And now, if they ever, Alan and Ginter, listen to me. If you ever make anything with mayonnaise, we will destroy Eric. Listen to me. We need this as a people. I need a condiment subset. Get the mayo in there. Let's do it.
Why is Eric anti-Mayo? Does he not like happiness? I don't understand.
Well, listen, Eric, of course. First, Simon, yes,
Oh
Eric
yeah,
detests happiness.
correct.
First, above all else, he detests happiness. He also hates America, freedom, and the troops. But that's a different conversation. The thing is that amongst the things that Eric hates, he complains he made the critical tactical error one time talking about his physical aversion to mayonnaise. And then, of course, being the good friends that we are, we then torment him with this mercilessly.
So like he can't have it or he can't see it.
Well, he could have it, but then he claims he'll throw up, he'll rage. Like he has a physical aversion. So he claims. He's just weird, though. He's had a lot of concussions.
That is Mayo is delicious. I don't know what to tell you.
Listen, you're preaching to the choir here, Simon.
Yeah.
But the point is that when Eric made this critical, speaking of content here, we're bringing back the content for a second.
Yeah.
As soon as he made this critical tactical error, then it was incumbent upon me, again as a man of peace, but also as a man of schadenfreude, to then make sure that we beat him mercilessly with this drum at every opportunity.
Mayonnaise is so great. This is so like I love
I just like how it froze you. You're like, but how does
I can't get over?
What's the
I can't
issue?
Get over, yeah, I can't get over it. All right, I actually have the card of the duck hunt. If I can figure out how to
The
present
duck
my
hunt?
screen, can I do
Sure.
that?
Yeah. So before you do, of course you can. But before you do, real quick, I'll just combine it because obviously folks that are watching this have already seen the podcast episode. On the most recent episode, and Simon, if you haven't already, got to watch the most recent episode. I was explaining to Eric that Carlos was playing around with AI. So speaking of, the thumbnails and everything, I was playing around with AI. And obviously one of the things that Eric has enjoyed the most from going to the expo is that he gets to hang out with all these hockey players, basically harass them and follow them around. But one of the ones that was the original was Marcel Dion. And we've had a lot of fun with the Marcel Dion thing over the years because obviously, Eric keeps trying to claim Marcel Dion as his best friend, and we think he's a stalker. That similar concepts, but two different interpretations of that relationship. But then I was playing around with AI. Going back to what I was saying earlier about the mayonnaise. What I did, and I'll just show it here, obviously. Oh, yes. I created an AI mayonnaise advertisement featuring former NHL player Marcel Dion.
Because I feel like I saw it was like the title of the episode, and I was like,
I have two versions of it. One is with him in a suit, and this is the other one.
And I didn't get the reference. I was like, I don't understand because it was like like I saw the title of the video. I didn't watch it, but I was like, I don't understand. But this makes a lot more sense. My
Simon,
mind,
it's not just Marcel.
that's really good. That's really good.
And listen, like I said, running jokes. So going back to what I said earlier about we have to make this hobby fun. I created an AI mayonnaise ad with Marcel Dion. I combined two things one thing that Eric loves with another thing that Eric hates. And then Simon, again, I'm not saying that I went to a printer and I'm having that made into a poster that I will present Eric with at the expo, but I'm not saying I didn't do that. Not that I would do that, but I'm saying hypothetically, it is something that Dr. Carlos would do.
That's right. That's right.
Indeed. I can't share on the screen here. So this is what you were talking about here. Let me zoom in. So there you go. We got the Diamondbacks there. I like that. I actually think with the refractor, I think that'll actually make it look really good. I do like that concept.
Yeah, I just think the concept of this with the feathers.
Can you click on it just to zoom in a little more? Can you click over the picture just to zoom in a little more? Yeah, if you click on it, it'll zoom. Yeah,
there you go. Yeah, you see the feathers in the bottom corner here. There's his face.
They really went for it. I like that.
Oh yeah, and then there's like the ball with you see the duck out there at the top.
I love that he used the font and everything from the NES cart. Like he really nailed the concept.
This nailed the heck out of this thing. This thing is like that's why this artist like chef's kiss. Like this is so good with like this bird looking at the ball with his big eyeballs. Being like, oh no, it's coming. And then just the feathers and so that's why I wanted this card so bad. It's just I don't know how you can look at this card and not laugh.
I like it. Well, Simon, now you got to bring that when you do get a chance to show it off on the video. You do. That's exactly the passion that you need to showcase it with. It's like, you guys, you don't understand. He's got the duck head. He's got the big eyes, and he's perfect.
Yeah. Perfect. It's I can't wait to get this card, but it's probably I'll have to get it at the expo from Brian from Ship My Cards.
Okay, very nice. So I think, like I said, I think there's a lot of fun to be had. Like I said, I showed you that burger cart. You saw that we can take one bit. And this, I think it was a couple of years ago where Eric first talked about his aversion to mayonnaise. We literally had a dinner where one of our friends, again, this has become a thing now. One of our friends literally had them. Can you put like a mayonnaise in a cup as a side? And he got it and he literally slid it beside Eric's plate and Eric almost jumped out of his chair.
Really? Wow.
Like Simon, as soon as he showed weakness, it's like, no, this was a mistake on your part. Never show weakness. Not like that. And now it's become a thing. Now we live in a world, Simon, where AI Marcel Dion promoting mayonnaise is a thing.
So good. That's really good. It looks so good too. It looks so realistic.
It was actually really. I was shocked how successfully I was able to get my vision. Look, Skynet might be taking over any moment now, but the point is, at least for a brief shining moment, that gem came into reality because of it.
We are using AI for good.
That's the best good I can possibly do. That's about as much as we're going to get out of it. So that was good. All right, let me quickly do a couple of rapid fire things. What we'll do is we'll kill it out at about just right about now here. We'll finish off. But real quick, before I do, a couple of quick things. I did mention it in there. We don't have to go into detail, obviously. Maybe we can have a part 2 now. Now that I've introduced Simon to everybody on the channel, maybe we'll have him back to join us on a Friday escapade. So we'll see what happens. But before we do that, we also talked about your Mario Lemieux collection. What is, first, the why, and then is there any rhyme or reason to it? Are there specific things you collect? Is it across the board? Give us a little background on that piece.
So I collect Mayo Lemieux. I grew up in Edmonton. So growing up in Edmonton, being a Pittsburgh Penguins fan and claiming that Mario Lemieux was the greatest hockey player of all time, wasn't exactly the thing that went over well, but that's neither here nor there. So the short version of it is Mario Lemieux was diagnosed with cancer January of 2023. My mom was diagnosed with cancer in November of 2022. And so it was like 2 months before that. So both of them, thankfully, recovered, were in remission. My mom is still alive to this day. But that is basically the gist of it. Is like he got cancer.
Sorry, just so we're clear, we're talking
about 1993? No, sorry, 1993.
Yeah,
okay. Sorry.
Right.
So it was basically like within 2 months of each other.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
So it was this like proxy battle against cancer. Is basically the gist of it. And so that's why he's my guy. That's why I have the shirt right there. And that's basically the gist of it. Now, in terms of collecting, so there's like a bajillion Mario Lemieux cards up there. I
There are,
cannot
yeah.
possibly collect them all, or else I will become you, and I will spend $100,000 on them, and I don't want to do that.
But on the other counterpoint, though, Simon, you will also be the inspirational driving force behind AI Marcel Dion mayonnaise ad. Is it all
that is a good point.
bad?
This
You
is
can you
this is
can
a good
produce
point.
good for the world, Simon. You can produce good for the world. Go ahead. You were saying.
So what I've done instead to narrow what I collect
Of course.
is I will only look for cards that are serial numbered 66,
Okay.
which is
Sure.
almost impossible now
Hmm.
because either they are priced extremely high on eBay
Hmm.
or I own them.
Hmm.
Is the gist of it. The one exception I made was at the National,
Hmm.
where I bought this. This is there you go.
Yep.
Excuse the glare. So
Yep.
this is
Those are the.
1993.
So put it over the front of your face there. Just put it over the front.
There you go. There you
Yep, right there. Because it's right dead center of the screen. That's beautiful.
go.
Yep.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, and so these are autographed. This is 1993. So this is the first cards that he signed for Leaf. He signs cards later on, and so they are
Hmm.
serial numbered out of 2000. And as you can see, this is a PSA 10.
Hmm.
And so it's got an authentic signature. It's a little streaky as they all are from the early 90s, but that's about as good as you're gonna get for the auto. And yeah, I got this in the PSA 10 at the National, which I was not expecting because hockey cards aren't exactly known at the National. They do exist, but yeah, I picked it up. I think in the PSA 10 it's like a pop 8 or something, and I got it for what I thought was a very reasonable number. And so that was that and Sarah Michelle Gellar were my two main pickups at the show.
I think that's a pretty successful show. Like what you're basically describing there, and that's why I was kind of curious. I wanted to get a little. I knew you collected Lemieux, but I also wanted to get a little bit specific about it. Is that there is the two schools of thought on this, and as a player collector, as someone who's been predominantly a player collector for the majority of
Yep.
my collecting life, I'm a big proponent of it. Obviously, it does narrow the field down a little bit. The Medano thing is the extreme, but the reality is, it's kind of grandfathered in. If I was going to start collecting anybody, and this is the case with my other player collections, I'm not. The Medano collection is the only one that I collect that way, aside from the wrestling example. But the wrestling example, and I'll tie this back to what we talked about earlier in this conversation. The wrestling example was the only case where I could do it because the manufacturer is only producing 3 series a year.
Yeah.
So it's more possible to be a super collector, quote unquote. With all the other ones, I collect Brett Favre cards. I'm very specific. I'm very picky about what I'm targeting. I've got a little bit of a Juan Soto collection. I'm very specific. I'm very picky about what I'm targeting because it is impossible to super
Right.
collect anybody that has a decent sized checklist, especially today. So now you becomes quality over quantity. And it becomes what is it that you like? What do you want to put your focus? And that Mary Lemieux collection is a good example of you putting in a limitation that then
Yes.
allows you to actually be able to collect, but then it had more meaning to the individual card because you're being very picky.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think adding and providing meaning to a collection makes it more fun and makes it
Mhm.
more interesting. Because if you're just collecting random cards of things that you don't care about, or there's no meaning behind the player that you collect, then at the end of the day, you're gonna look at it and be like, why do I have all this stuff? What am I doing exactly? And so, yeah, I agree with that. I should mention. So those are the player collections that I have. The
Sure.
Duck Hunt card is part of my other collection, which is collect cool stuff, collect fun stuff. So I have
Okay.
that card and a bunch of others that I think are part of the. This is fun and cool.
Mhm.
So the other card that I have that's somewhere over there, it's a refractor card of Tim Duncan, and it's like a widescreen, so it's like a horizontal card,
Mhm.
and he's taking a free throw, and it's an X Fractor actually, and in the background, those like wavy sticks that they have to distract the free throw shooter in
Okay.
a
Yeah. Yeah.
basketball game. So then, because it's an X Fractor, if you tilt it a certain way, it actually looks like the wavy sticks are actually moving,
Oh,
uh,
okay.
and it looks great. And then the X Fractors are serial numbered out of 50. And so then I have one of those in a PSA 10, which is like a pop 2. And so it's one of those like, this card with this parallel does this weird thing that makes the card feel real life. And that's cool. And it's like, that card's on my PC. And so it's stuff like that. The other, to bring back to wrestling, the card that I am looking for that I don't think I'll find easily is a Kevin Owens inscription card. I don't know if you're aware
Oh,
of
one
this.
of those, yeah.
Yeah,
No,
I
I
want
know
one of
he's had
those.
a lot of fun with inscriptions. Yes.
Oh yeah. So I didn't know this existed, and then I found out. But I'm like, oh, I think he's my favorite wrestler. I think, and and he writes the silliest things like I like soup, or whatever. And so I just want one of those because he clearly is like having fun with it, and he seems like a really funny guy outside of his persona. And so that's one of the cards I'm looking for my PC. It doesn't really matter what the phrase is. Apparently, one says like I love alligators. The bloodline aren't related or something. Like, there's all sorts of funny things. So that's another one of these cards are cool and they make me laugh or they amuse me in some way. That is my other collection.
Well, that's a perfect example of kind of what you're looking for in terms of that. For me, it really comes down to what can you do to make this enjoyable for yourself?
Yep.
That's why a great irony, we've already, part of the reason we'll be able to have a conversation, a part 2, is that I can go down a whole rabbit hole of where a lot of folks have decided to take their content on it. They'll look at the pricing of products, which is high. By the way, I'll be the first to tell you, it's too high. The return on investment of some of these boxes is atrocious. It really is. It's very bad. I could see that being very discouraging. And yet I still live in a world where I can have a get that bread burger card.
Yeah.
Like this is not an investment piece. I thought this was hilarious. I love the fact this exists. I collect Josh Rosen cards for the same reason, unironically. It's for jokes. It's to have fun with it. And people would be, like I said, people will look at it and go, that's a pretty nice card. It's like, yeah, it's not worth anything because it's Josh Rosen, but it is a very nice card. And back then in 2018, this would have been worth a mint because he was a top draft pick at the time. And people were looking at these guys, and that's a prospect gone wrong. Like, he's very much a bust at this point. He's gone. He's not going to play another snap in the NFL. But for a moment in time, people were paying good money for these cards.
Exactly. You got to have fun in the hobby, I think, is my takeaway. Whether that's making content, or whether that's the way you collect, just make sure you're having fun. Because if you're not, then what are you even here for? Why are you even doing this, right?
Mm-hmm. Or torment, a friend, associate, person who pays for the like button with mayonnaise.
Yeah. Or hate watch all the content you want, as per our previous discussion. Just hate watch it. Just know you're hate watching it. At least be self-aware enough to know that you're hate watching content.
Love it. So everybody, we got the CanCon. Congratulations. You're not all getting deported. You're safe for now. For now, that's the best I can promise, but at least for the moment, we're all right. So Simon466 cards, I'll put his links in the description. Anything else we should be looking forward to other than Simon's half-baked ideas, which honestly now is a phenomenal idea that needs to happen.
I think I'm actually going to do it. I'm going to have to bring back the video that we talked about today to put it back on the list. Just follow my content on YouTube. I put out videos every Wednesday and Sunday for you early risers. They come out at 7 a.m. So you can put that in the background as you make your coffee or whatever if you wake up early. And every once in a while, I'll do another video on top of that. So yeah, that's it for me. But yeah, thanks for having me on, Carlos. It was fun.
Absolutely. Yes. And we'll have Simon back on the channel now that he's been introduced as a character. Now it has unlocked potential future Simon appearances where schedules and opportunities permit. The children get the precedence. But if we can bring him on and have him chat with us a little bit, I think we'll be able to do that. All right, folks, that's it. Remember, appreciate the content, gods. Like, subscribe. Remember to hit the like button. Eric pays for it. He always pays for it. More videos will be coming up on the channel. Live streams on Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we have regular, succinct, and to the point, the most succinct and short 4-hour plus live streams on this platform. No one else can boast that. Like, no one else. It's succinct and to the point. We nail it every single week. Usually there's a plus in there, but sometimes a plus. But right there, succinct and to the point, live streams on Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The longest running episodic, it is episodic because the jokes continue. Oh, it is it. Simon, let me tell you, this mayonnaise thing's going on years. It is episodic, I promise you. It cannot be more episodic if we tried.
I do know that you number them and you're at like 240, 250, something like that.
We're at 250 plus now. We're on the route to 300, Simon. We're just rolling this train down the tracks. It's going on. Anyway, so that's it for this one. All the stuff will be in the description, all the videos and everything, so you can check them out for yourself. And We'll take it easy, and we'll be back with an episode 4. I've got somebody else who's going to be a little bit chatty at episode 4. We'll have a little bit of fun. Catch you in the next one.